Chapter 1, Chance Encounters. Chapter Text. Izuku Midoriya was all too familiar with how unfair the world is. Like many others, he developed a quirk at 4 years old. But unlike others, he wasn't praised for his quirk. Izuku's quirk allowed him to put people to sleep with a scent he gave off. It started small with people saying they fell asleep in class because of Izuku's quirk, but it escalated as he got older. People accused him of stealing things after he put them to sleep, and once he became a teenager, girls accused him of putting them to sleep and doing things to them. It didn't help that his parents had died when he was a child due to a villain attack and left him an orphan. The only solace he found was in heroes. He loved them and obsessed over them, taking notes and analyzing how they fought. His dream was to become a hero, especially when he heard of Midnight and saw how her quirk was the same as his. Izuku panted as he slipped away from the boys chasing him. They ran off in the wrong direction, and Izuku was thankful that Katsuki wasn't part of the group, or else he probably wouldn't have been able to give them the slip as easily as he did. It was the same as always. After school, someone accused him of knocking them out and doing something or other. Izuku wasn't sure about the specifics. He had stopped listening to what they actually said a long time ago. Some guys would then chase him down, and if he was fast enough or lucky enough, he would get away. If not, then he would get beat up and left to hobble back to the orphanage. Izuku sat down and pulled out his hero notebook to look over the notes he took. He wasn't going to organize them now while in a back alley, but he needed to calm down and kill time till the bullies gave up the search and left. Izuku was so deep in thought as he read what he wrote about Empty Lady and Kamui Woods that he didn't notice the long, thin fingers reach over his shoulder and pluck the notebook from his hands as a woman spoke. "Now what do we have here? Oh, notes on Empty Lady? My oh my. What did a young boy like yourself write about a girl like her?" Izuku panicked as he shot to his feet and tripped over his tongue, trying to tell whoever it was that he didn't write anything weird, but his brain stopped as he saw who had his notebook. The R-rated hero Midnight stood there smirking as she read the notes on Empty Lady. Oh, a little too showy. And why did she set up in a city when her quirk would work so well out in the countryside? The hero laughed as Izuku blushed and tried to formulate his thoughts. His favorite hero was in front of him. The person who showed that just because everyone said it was a villain's quirk doesn't mean it's true. He had the same quirk as Midnight and she was a hero, so he could be one as well. Izuku noticed she was staring at him, and he hadn't actually said anything yet. His brain panicked. Umwaya wrote that this morning. I saw her fight and thought it was weird. I promise there's nothing bad in there. Midnight laughed and snapped the book shut. Oh, I'm sure there isn't. You seem like a sweet kid. But I gotta ask, why are you hiding back here? You didn't perhaps do something bad, did you? Izuku shook his head and waved his hands. No, I didn't. I just was. Let me guess. Midnight tapped her chin in rhythm with her foot. You're hiding from those 3 boys who were chasing you. I'm guessing bullies, right? Izuku clutched the hem of his shirt and nodded as he stared at the floor. So what were they bullying you for? Was it this? He looked up to see her wave the notebook back and forth. And not this time. Casey Bakugo usually bullies me about the notebook, but he wasn't with those guys. Midnight sighed, seeing how shaken and meek this boy was. She never understood how schools could let bullies run rampant like they seemed to do. So then what were those particular mini-villains after? The moment of truth. Izuku knew he shouldn't feel nervous. She had the same quirk as him, so she would understand, right? Right? Even if she's a girl and he's a guy, that difference shouldn't be enough for her to not understand. And my quirk. That piqued Midnight's interest. He didn't have any mutations. In fact, he was kind of plain looking, so it wasn't that. Maybe it was a gross quirk, or perhaps it was similar to a recent villain's quirk. What is your quirk? It's like Somnambulist, but different. I have slight telepathic control over the cloud. It helps keep it close to me, and I've managed to co-condense it into a liquid before that's more potent than the gas. The doctor called it narcolepsy. Izuku screwed his eyes shut and braced for the worst. But it never came, just a gentle hand patting his head. Slowly he looked up to see Midnight giving him a sad smile. It must be hard. I'm sure people have made plenty of assumptions about you and what you do with your quirk. I dealt with similar things while I was in school. She removed her hand from his head, and he felt a tug of sadness at the missing contact. Tell me. Well, First, I suppose you should tell me your name, then tell me what you want to do with this quirk you have. Izuku took a deep breath and stood up a little straighter. I am Izuku Midoriya, and I want to be a hero. I've always loved heroes. Then when I saw you and how you have a quirk like mine, I took that as proof that I could be a hero and help people with my quirk. You're my favorite hero because of that. Midnight smiled and laughed. I have to say, Midoriya, that's quite the reason to have me as your favorite hero. Not one that most people have. The hero chuckled as the boy's face turned red, and he sputtered. Calm down now. Here, you should have this back. She returned his notebook to him. How about I make sure you get home without running into any more bullies, and you promise to go to UA when you're headed off to college. Izuku took the notebook and nodded. I've always wanted to go to UA, so that's easy, but, before we go, can I get an autograph? Midnight laughed again and signed his notebook before leading the boy out of the alley he had hidden away in. As they got to the street, she looked at him. So which way, kid? This way. Izuku stuttered as he started walking. Midnight smiled and followed shortly behind. This was weird. He felt like everyone was staring at him as he walked, but he guessed they would since Midnight of all heroes was right next to him, just smiling and commenting on shops or restaurants she enjoyed visiting while in the area. It didn't take long till they were standing outside the orphanage that Izuku called home. Well, thank dash. Izuku! A feminine voice yelled before someone barreled into Izuku, pulling him into a hug. Oh my god. There you are. But you didn't answer a single text or phone call I sent. Midnight held back laughter as a woman taller than herself picked up Izuku, who was fumbling for his phone. Her bright green hair went down her shoulders on one side but was buzzed on the left. Midnight saw that despite calling him a butt and the reason she's going to develop a heart condition, the women's teal eyes were full of nothing but kindness and worry for the boy. The woman noticed Midnight and promptly dropped Izuku. Holy sure dash. Crap. Yep, holy crap, it's a Midnight. The woman looked at Izuku. Izu. Why do you have our favorite lady hero following you home? Midnight smiled and chuckled at the question. Yes, it is. It's nice to meet another fan. I ran into Midoriya on patrol. He was hiding from bullies. Izuku shrank back as the woman's eyes darkened. Those stupid brats. Were they picking on you because of your quirk again? Izuku nodded. Why yeah. I slipped away before they caught me, and that's when I ran into Midnight. The woman's face softened. Good. You didn't get hurt. She turned and bowed to Midnight. Thank you for getting him home safe. I'm Yasuda Azuki. I mainly look after the older kids. Which is just Izuku. It's quite all right, Azuki. I was simply doing my job as a hero. Now, if you'll excuse me, I should get going. I've got a prattle to finish and projects back at UA to grade. As Midnight left, she heard Yasuda squeal and give Izuku a high five when she saw he got Midnight's autograph. The hero chuckled before picking up the pace to make sure no villains were acting up. Izuku quickly sat down on his bed as Yasuda sat in his desk chair and grinned at him. So Izu, let's talk about how you had freaking Midnight walking you home. Izuku sighed and looked around his barren room. Across from the door to his room was a window that looked out onto the garden behind the orphanage, and to the right of the door was a bookshelf with his various journals and books on heroes. Next to the bookshelf was the desk he used for schoolwork. Just another old piece of furniture that had been here since the orphanage started. Across from his desk was the bed with its dark green sheets that he was currently sitting on. If Izuku could afford to, there would have been hero merch covering every inch of his relatively small room. But alas, the orphanage didn't have the funds to give him enough allowance to afford that stuff. He kept his money for when he wanted a treat, or clothes that weren't hand-me-downs, or when he wanted to get something for the younger kids. They looked up to him since he was the oldest kid, so he treated them to little things that would make their faces light up with joy. Yasuda snapped her fingers. Come on, boy. I got laundry to get to. But I want to hear details first because oh my god. She's so much hotter in person than TV, and her hero merch does not do her justice. Izuku chuckled and thought about how much he wished his room could look like Yasuda's apartment. She had shown him pictures of all the merch she got for all her favorite heroes. She claimed to be the one who set him down the path of being a huge nerd when it came to heroes. He had quickly caught up to her and surpassed her in some aspects of hero knowledge, much to her joy. All the staff were wonderful, But his bond with Yasuda was special in a way no one else had managed. So he told her about what happened and how he ended up meeting Midnight. Yasuda bit her tongue and tried not to curse. She was finding it hard to not let a storm out about how shit his school was and how she wished they could send him to a different one. But the government was clear on how the orphanage had to operate and where they could send their kids so that they kept getting funding. This green-haired bean sprout of a boy had been here since before she started working, but they quickly got along, especially with how he would help around the orphanage doing chores and keeping the younger kids occupied. They knew he wouldn't get adopted. He was 14 already, so the chances new parents would take the risk of raising a teenager who's lived in the system was slim to none. Yasuda would consider it, except she didn't make enough money, and she also didn't think she would be a good mom. She was much better as an older sister who annoyed and checked in on him. Yasuda laughed as he nerded out and started muttering about Midnight and her quirk. She let him go on for a bit before snapping him back to reality and telling him to go check on the other kids while she finished the laundry. Izuku smiled brightly as his woes were temporarily forgotten, and he rushed to go find the younglings who were probably terrorizing one of Yasuda's co-workers. A week went by, and Midnight still found her thoughts drifting back to a plain-looking middle school boy who looked too sad and fragile for someone his age. He had a fire in his eyes when he said he wanted to be a hero, but it was like that flame was constantly being attacked from all sides, threatening to go out at any moment. She knew what it was like to be bullied for your quirk. She had dealt with it growing up as well. Despite the changes, quirks brought some things stayed the same, like how cruel people could be towards something that made them uncomfortable or feel vulnerable, and what does that better than a person who could put you to sleep at any moment? She shook her head and looked over the city from the rooftop she was perched on. It was a slow day. Apparently, All Might had passed through while she was in UA teaching and rounded up a lot of villains, so she could expect a few quiet days until word spread that he had moved on. A clattering of metal hitting concrete got Midnight's attention. She looked down and saw a familiar mop of green hair tumbling over as 3 boys descended on him. Midnight frowned and made her way down to the group who had grabbed Izuku and were trying to get him to stop struggling enough to start beating him. Midnight landed with a soft thud and took a deep breath before speaking, "Hey, what do you think you 3 are doing?" The 3 boys trying to pin Izuku down stopped and looked back in shock at Midnight's stern face. They scrambled off Izuku, who moved away from them. Midnight huffed, "You 3 best explain what's going on." The boys started stammering over each other, trying to explain how Izuku was getting punished because some girls said they caught him trying to knock them out with his quirk. Midnight's eye twitched, and she snapped her whip, shutting them up. "Midoriya, right?" Izuku nodded frantically, and Midnight continued, "Is it true what they said?" "And no, it's not. I didn't do anything like that. I was just trying to go home," Izuku stuttered out. A stern glare from Midnight kept the other boys from speaking. "How about next time you go talk to a teacher instead of trying to take matters into your own hands? You 3 run along now, and don't let me catch you trying this again." Once the boys ran off, Midnight sighed and looked at Izuku, who was still sitting on the ground, "Getting bullied for your quirk again?" The boy nodded and flinched as she held her hand out for him. "Come on, let's get you home." Izuku took her hand and was yanked up to his feet. Midnight shook her head. "You know you're kinda scrawny for a boy trying to be a hero. I was hoping to get a job during high school and maybe save money for weights or something. You should go on a jog in the morning or something. Start doing push-ups and stuff. It'll be better the sooner you start." Midnight smiled. "Also, if you start getting stronger, you can beat those punks up if I'm not around to save you." As the 2 got onto the main street, Izuku stammered, Should a hero really be telling me to get strong, so I can beat people up?" Midnight waved her finger. No, I'm not telling you that. I'm saying get strong so you can defend yourself without your quirk. That way, it's self-defense, and you don't break any quirk laws." "Oh, I guess I could start exercising more. Though maybe I get enough running in as it is." He thought his attempt at making light of his bully situation was going to fall through, but Midnight chuckled before quickly catching herself. Midnight cleared her throat and tried to look serious. "Bullying is not a laughing matter. Kid, do your teachers not do anything about it? Or have you not told them?" She watched him tense up and started taking an interest in the sidewalk. I told them, but they don't seem to see care." Midnight growled, "Quirk discrimination most likely. Those stuck-up fucks. How are there still people like that around nowadays? She took a breath to calm down before speaking. What about Izuki? It seems like she knows all about it. Izuku nodded. She wants me to go to a different school. But Aldra is the only middle school the orphanage can send kids to due to regulations. If they try to send them somewhere else, we could lose our government funding. Midnight scoffed at what seemed like a ridiculous requirement for an orphanage. She noticed Izuku chewing his lip, so she set aside her complaints. What's on your mind, Midoriya? Izuku jumped a bit. Well, I was just thinking. You're not acting like you usually do on the news and stuff. Midnight grinned. Oh, are you saying you want me to be flirty with you? Honestly, some boys these days are too bold for their own good. She laughed as Izuku blushed and sputtered. After a moment, she patted his head. Midnight is just a persona I use while being a hero. Midnight explained as they got closer to the orphanage. It's a way to bring some comedy and a little fun to the aftermath, and it's surprising how much flirting with a villain can throw them off in a fight. She chuckled, seeing Izuku's eyes light up at the reason. I use it when I need to, but sometimes it's better to drop the act and be more like myself. Like with you. I can tell you'd probably be too much of a mess if I spoke to you like Midnight. Izuku nodded, still with a blush on his face. Why, yeah, probably. I see the use for a persona, but I always thought heroes were just themselves. You'd be surprised, kid. Personas are actually really common in the hero community. It just helps us manage the stress of the job. Now run home and tell Izuki what happened, and don't let the bullies dampen your spirit. I'm sure you'll be a good hero, once you get some muscle on you. Izuku's smile made Midnight smile as he ran off home to speak to Yasuda about today. After his talk with Midnight and then talking to Yasuda, Izuku started going on jobs before school and watching videos on Yasuda's phone to learn how to do some exercises at home. It was hard work to keep himself motivated and on track, but it got easier as he dedicated a notebook to tracking his progress. His muscles ached and burned the day after his workouts, but he found himself sleeping better, and he focused better in school. The new motivation and energy that came with his workouts led to him pouring himself into his hero analysis and his studies, and he rose in the ranks at school. Sadly, the bullying didn't let up. People had new accusations every week, and Izuku found himself running more and more to escape his tormentors. Thanks to his workouts, though, more times than not, he would get away. Unknown to him, a certain hero smiled proudly every time she crossed paths and saw him escape. Midnight felt like she should do more, but she wasn't sure. She had some contacts with the police, but she would need more proof to get them to act. She could go to Nizu. He specialized in systematically dismantling organizations that weren't up to snuff. That was part of why she hesitated to bring him in. He was terrifying, and if he got involved, who knows where he'd stop. He could end up targeting the entire Japanese school system, or when he found out Izuku was in an orphanage, the rat may target that system for reform. The more she thought about it, the more it sounded kind of like a good idea. Maybe she would run it by Shota and the others first. Shota groaned as he laid in the corner of the teacher's lounge. He could hear the click of heels getting closer. He knew any second now. The door swung open, and Namuri smiled. What's up, fuckers? I got a situation I need your advice on. 13 set down their tea, and Namuri took in the rare sight of her fellow teacher. 13 was seldom seen without their costume on, but whenever they were, Namuri made sure to memorize the hero's features. Soft silver eyes like stars and a face framed by deep blue hair kept short, so they wouldn't struggle with their helmet. Shaking herself free of the staring contest, she accidentally entered with the space hero. She saw Hizashi nudging Shota to make sure he paid attention. The voice hero spoke. So what's the deal, Namuri? Namuri sat on the couch and sighed. Well, it started a few weeks ago. She explained how she met Izuku and the couple run-ins they had. 13 nodded. I can see why you're hesitant to bring Nizu in on this. He does get pretty intense. Hizashi snapped his fingers. Oh, I got it. Just do what Shota did and adopt the kid. Then you can move him somewhere safer. The room went quiet as Shota glared at Hizashi. I hate you so much. The voice hero laughed. No, you don't. Namuri waved her hands. Hold up, Shota. You have a kid now? Like you actually adopted a kid? You didn't just kidnap them, did you? Shota scoffed and sank into his sleeping bag. No, I didn't. I was on patrol and heard a ruckus. I found a kid Shinso Hitoshi getting abused by his parents because of his quirk, so I saved him and then, yeah, kept him around. He's got potential and he needs a good place, so I gave him one. Namuri felt like her worldview was shifting. Grumpy OL Shota was a dad now, and he hadn't told anyone except Hizashi, which made sense. Those two were basically joined at the hip no matter how much Shota claimed he didn't like it. Wow! How long ago did this happen? The Erasure hero grumbled. 3 months ago. Namuri gasped. 3 months? How could you keep such a sweet story from me for so long? Because I know how you get. Now let me sleep. I have a class to teach in a few hours. Shota said, curling up in his sleeping bag and closing his eyes, effectively ending the conversion. 13 asked, so any idea on what you're gonna do? Namuri shook her head. I'm not sure. I don't think adopting the kid would be a good idea. I mean, she gestured to herself. Unlike Shota, I'm a spotlight hero, and you know how the media love to find any reason to dig into me. If I got a kid, I don't know. It feels like that would just be bad for both of us. 13 shrugged as Namuri started to leave. I'll figure something out. I'm sure of it. I'm as smart as I am sexy. Namuri tried not to blush as she was pretty sure she wasn't supposed to hear 13 mutter, yeah, you are. Several days after her talk with the others, Midnight sat on a rooftop and saw Izuku come running down the alley. This time his pursuer was a single boy with ash blonde hair. He looked extra angry compared to the usual bullies. Part of her nagged that as a hero she should step in every time Izuku showed up with bullies on his tail, but the more logical side, as Eraserhead would put it, said he needed the experience of slipping away from others and that if she saved him every time he wouldn't be prepared for when she wasn't there. Not that she let them beat Izuku up, she just wouldn't interfere unless he was caught. Then she would jump in and save him. It was looking like it would be one of those days. The ash blonde boy was catching up, and Midnight stood up, ready to make her way down until she heard an explosion. Her eyes shot down to confirm that yes, the boy had just used his quirk on Izuku and was standing over the green-haired boy with his palms setting off tiny explosions. Midnight descended quickly. It was one thing to try and beat someone up with your fist, but to use your quirk? Either he was several ignorant of quirk laws, or he thought he could get away with it. Both were concerning options. As she got down to the ground and rushed around the corner, she could hear the boy shouting, "You stupid fucking Deku! I told you to stop with those creepy fucking notebooks. And what's with you, huh? You're still a scrawny fuck, but don't think I don't see you putting on muscle. What you think some useless villain fuck like you could ever be a hero?" Midnight was already tearing her sleeve as another explosion rang out when Izuku tried to stammer a response. Both boys looked confused as her quirk washed over them. Much to Midnight's surprise, Izuku didn't pass out. He simply seemed half asleep as his head bobbed slightly. Midnight. Midnight smiled. Hey kid. Having trouble? Izuku's head lolled back for a moment before going forward again. Why yeah, Bakugo saw my notebook. He doesn't like tat, I'm trying to be a hero. Midnight pulled Katsuki off Izuku and pulled out her restraints. She made sure his palms were pressed against his back as she restrained him and pulled her phone out. Izuku was regaining his senses and asked, what are you doing? Midnight blinked. Calling the police to bring a car over. This kid just used his quirk to assault you. He's going to get in trouble for this. She saw the pensive look on his face and worried that he was going to be against it. She'd seen it plenty with victims. They would try to protect their abusers out of fear of what could happen if it didn't work. Izuku surprised her, though, as he nodded. I wish it didn't happen, but... Why yeah, I know he has to. Good. Now come on. They'll need your statement. Izuku scrambled to his feet, grabbing his backpack and following Midnight as she dragged a still-out cold Katsuki. Chapter 2. Changes in Motion. Chapter Text. Katsuki woke up slowly. The first thing he noticed was a lack of Deku cowering below him. The next thing he realized was that he was staring at a steel table, and he had quirk suppressant cuffs on. What the hell? Where am I? And where the fuck is the useless Deku? A man in a beige trench coat and hat stepped in. You're awake. That's good to see. I'm Detective Tsukachi. Your name is Katsuki Bakugo. Correct. Katsuki strained against his cuffs. Fucking, obviously. Why the hell am I cuffed? Where the fuck is that liar Deku? Tsukachi sat across from him. Deku? Oh, do you mean Izuku Midoriya? He's given his statement on the event. We're just awaiting your parents then dash. The door opened, and Masaru and Mitsuki walked in. Mitsuki bristled. Why is my son cuffed? Tsukachi stood and motioned to the seats on either side of Katsuki. Please have a seat, and we can discuss what happened. Katsuki's parents sat down, and Mitsuki glared at Katsuki. What the hell did you do? I saw Izuku as we came in with a pro. Tsukachi cleared his throat. Yes. About that. The pro outside is Midnight. She found both your son and Midoriya. It appears your son was assaulting Midoriya with his quirk. Katsuki's parents tensed as a string of curses and rants were forcing their way to his mouth. They died at the sight of his mother's expression. Most people would say she was neutral, but Katsuki could see the fury behind her mask. He had seen it only a few times, but it always made him stop. Tsukachi continued, Katsuki Bakugo is being charged with assault, public use of a quirk without a license, and using a quirk to cause unnecessary harm or injury. Katsuki turned back towards the detective. That's bullsh-dash. Mitsuki smacked him upside the head so quickly he nearly hit the table. Shut your mouth, brat. You don't talk unless we need you to. Do you not understand the severity of this? They can try you as a villain even if you're a minor. You can say goodbye to your dream of being a hero. If this happens, you'd be lucky to get a job at a fast food restaurant. Tsukachi spoke. That brings me to a point I wanted to mention. Katsuki Bakugo, you're in luck. Since this is the first recorded incident, and Izuku Midoriya wasn't hurt too badly, we can offer you an alternative. He looked to both Katsuki's parents as he continued. These crimes won't go on his record, but he will have to attend therapy twice a week for 6 months. And if the therapist is satisfied with his progress, then that will be it. The Bakugo parents started to relax until Tsukachi continued. But if he doesn't show improvement that satisfies her, he will be punished, and if he has any other incidents, he will not get another chance. You're his parents, so you need to make sure he takes this seriously. Mitsuki sighed a tired and defeated sigh. All her fury had run cold, and now there was just regret. Masaru and I had strict childhoods. Masaru's was worse than mine, so when we had Katsuki, we hoped giving him more freedom would keep him from the issues we both had. It looks like we went too far in the other direction. We weren't attentive enough in raising him, and now he's done something like this. Mitsuki forced Katsuki, who was still reeling from the whole situation, to bow his head as his parents did the same. His mother spoke with none of her usual sass or fire. Thank you, sir, for allowing us this chance to correct his mistakes. We promise to keep him in line and will endeavor to make sure this never happens again. I promise. Tsukachi nodded and slid a packet of papers over. This has everything you'll need. The officer outside will take you to the paperwork you need to sign. Once you're home, I suggest looking over all the info as a family and setting up his first appointment. The Bakugos bowed again as they stood and left with the officer waiting for them. As they walked, Katsuki was still trying to rationalize how Deku had done this to him. He saw the green nerd sitting with that slut hero the nerd always admired. Katsuki's palms itched. He wanted nothing more than to charge after that useless nerd and show him why it was a mistake to do this to him. But he couldn't. Not here anyway. Midnight watched as Izuku tensed his eyes full of fear as Katsuki walked by with his parents. She didn't like the look in the blonde boy's eyes, but staring wasn't an actionable offense, so she simply laid her hand on Izuku's back and felt him relax slightly before all the tension left him when the Bakugos rounded the corner. Yasuda rushed in a few minutes later with murder in her eyes until she saw Izuku was okay. Her features softened, and she ran over to him, kneeling as she took his hands. Izuku, are you okay? Izuku sniffed and nodded. Why yeah, I'm fine. My uniform needs to get a thorough cleaning, but it'll be okay. Dummy, I don't care about your clothes. I need to know you're scrawny but is okay. Yasuda said as she let out a breathy laugh. Midnight smiled. Midoriya is okay. Azuki. I got to him before anything bad could happen. Yasuda looked like she was going to cry as she looked at Midnight. Thank you, ma'am, for helping him. I don't know what I can do to make it up to you. Midnight waved her concern away. It's nothing, Azuki. It's my job as a hero to help people in need. and Midoriya was in need, so I did my job and helped him. Tsukachi came over. Are you Izuku Midoriya's guardian? Yasuda stood up and bowed. Yes. I work for the orphanage and care for Izuku. My name is Yasuda Azuki. Tsukachi looked over a paper in his hand and nodded. All right, then we can release him back to you. As Izuku and Midnight stood, Tsukachi said, Keep safe, kid. I hope we don't have to see you in here until you're working as a pro. Izuku laughed weakly and smiled. I hope so too. Izuku felt awkward walking with Yasuda on his left and Midnight on his right. Both women were talking about Izuku being bullied with barely contained fury. Yasuda was recounting the times Izuku had come home hurt, and Midnight was telling her about the times she would watch Izuku and step in if he got caught. At first, Yasuda wanted to be upset that Midnight didn't always step in, but after the pro explained her reasoning, the green-haired woman calmed down. Through their conversation, both learned that Izuku hadn't revealed how much bullying happened and often hid his injuries, which luckily were limited to bruises and scrapes with the occasional burn. Izuku felt incredibly small under their combined gaze, but it softened almost immediately, and Yasuda spoke. We worry about you is all you big nerd. I told you a million times you don't need to hide things from me. Midnight nodded. We may not know each other very well, Midoriya, but I understand what you're going through, so please don't be afraid to talk with me when we run into each other. Izuku blushed hard as the two rubbed his head. I'll be more upfront about what goes on. The two women smiled, satisfied with his answer. The rest of the walk was peaceful and less awkward for Izuku. Once they were back at the orphanage, Midnight stopped before she left. Midoriya, if you want, I can train you in self-defense. Nothing fancy, but if you get caught, it'll keep you from getting beat up until help can come. Izuku looked at Yasuda, who smiled. I told you I would teach you if you wanted, and now you've got a hero offering to teach you. I promise to not be too offended if you choose her over me. Izuku blushed and stared at the sidewalk before saying, See, can both of you teach me? I get the feeling you two have different ways of going about self-defense. I should probably learn both. Midnight smiled. Are you good with sharing, Azuki? Yasuda laughed. I suppose I can let him out of my sight for a bit if he's with you. Come by some time, and we can work out a schedule for him. Midnight nodded. I'll be sure to stop by when I can. It was nearly 2 weeks after that day before Izuku saw Katsuki again. In that time, Midnight and Yasuda started teaching him self-defense. Izuku was right. They were different but also surprisingly similar in how they taught him. Midnight, being a pro, had mixed and adjusted several fighting styles to best suit her quirk. Her style included lots of flowing movements and precise strikes. Meanwhile, Yasuda, who definitely didn't brag about all the fights she had gotten into when she was in school, fought like a boxer and preferred to be on the defensive. Both were taskmasters, and they gave him little rest and expected much from him. He enjoyed learning from them. Izuku was feeling more confident in himself after the first few lessons. His workouts adjusted to fit his new focus, and for a time, even the bullies at school backed off. Until Katsuki came back and Izuku could feel the tension in the air. The blonde didn't even look at him or register his existence. Instead of making him feel safer, Izuku just felt dread building up. The day was spent worrying about when and where Katsuki would strike from, but it didn't happen. For 3 days, Katsuki Bakugo ignored the existence of Izuku Midoriya. The other bullies felt emboldened by Katsuki being back at school, but he never joined in for those 3 days. It was the 4th day when Izuku started to think he may be able to relax that Katsuki struck. Izuku was shoved against the wall hard. Katsuki had dragged him out behind the school during lunch. He knew no one would be back here, and the back of the school had a small forest of trees behind it, so there was no chance of a random passerby seeing them either. Katsuki didn't look angry, which scared Izuku more than normal. Izuku had seen this look on Katsuki's mother's face once back when they were still friends, and it terrified him. Izuku flinched as Katsuki spoke in a dull tone. You think you're hot shit? Don't you, Deku? You tick me off, so I chase you down. Then you get that slut hero you're always going on about to swoop in and start making claims. Now I have to go fucking therapy like some kind of weakling. It's all your fault. You put my dreams at risk. So I'm gonna beat the shit out of you until you understand where you belong in this world. Izuku tried to press himself against the wall and think of a way out of this, but it was hopeless. Katsuki was blocking his only way to escape, and he knew even with his lessons, Izuku didn't stand a chance. Katsuki seemed to have a sixth sense for fighting and wasn't afraid to act on it. Izuku opened his mouth to speak, but Katsuki descended on him quickly and punched Izuku to the ground. Izuku tried to get up and defend himself, but Katsuki broke any resistance he put up and forced Izuku back into the ground. Eventually, Izuku simply curled in on himself, trying to minimize the damage to anything important. Katsuki noticed this and seemed to start hitting harder and aimed several kicks at Izuku's head. With each hit, it felt like all the progress Izuku was making in his goal was stripped away until it was just little Deku sitting on the ground. Izuku felt something break inside him. He wasn't sure if it was mental or physical. It all just hurt. The blood that leaked out of his mouth showed him it was physical. Katsuki knelt by his head and spoke quietly as Izuku tried to breathe properly. "Remember? You're just a Deku. You'll never be anything more. Now fuck off and never bother me again." Midnight sighed as she walked the streets. Usually, she stuck to the roofs so she could avoid any weirdos or the press. Both were always looking for any and every shot they could get for various reasons. The pro stopped in her tracks and blinked several times because what she saw in front of her just didn't compute. It made her brain freeze and skip. The sight was just wrong. Izuku was limping down the barren sidewalk, his backpack clutched to his chest with one arm while the other hung by his side. There was blood leaking from his mouth, and his eyes were half-lidded and unfocused. His uniform was tattered, and she could see bruises forming all over his neck and face. From how his body flinched with each step, she knew there were even more. Izuku started to fall forward, and Midnight rushed over and caught him. "Midoriya, what the hell happened?" Midnight kept her panic in check as he seemed to go limp in her arms. She checked his breathing and pulse, making sure he still had both. His breaths were shallow and ragged, but they were there. As gently as she could, she picked him up and pulled her phone out as she rushed down the sidewalk. They weren't far from where she parked her car. As she ran, the phone rang twice before an elderly woman answered. "Kayama, why are you calling me? You're not in Todi Dash." "Chio, I need you in the nurse's office now. Send medical bots and a stretcher to the teacher's parking lot. I'll be there soon. I've got an urgent case." "All right, it's done. What happened?" Midnight laid Izuku in the back of the black sedan UA provided so their teachers could get to patrol grounds easier. "The boy I told you and the others about, Midoriya. He's been seriously injured." She heard the woman grumbling as Midnight hopped into the driver's seat and started the car. "Was this because of your training him?" "No." Midnight took a deep breath and tried to calm down. "I have no idea what happened. I was on patrol and stumbled across him." "All right, the bots are at the parking lot. How long till you're here?" Midnight tore out of the parking space and down the road. 5 minutes. I'll have to apologize to the police later for the reckless driving." The car screeched as Midnight came to a stop and helped the robots get Izuku onto the stretcher. As they moved through the halls, the students of UA quickly jumped out of her way. The usually flirty and happy-go-lucky art teacher looked to be on the warpath, and no one wanted to be the one to stall her progress. Even if the barely conscious kid next to her on a stretcher raised a lot of questions. Recovery Girl opened the door before Midnight could even get close enough to open it. "Lay him on bed 3. As Recovery Girl got to work, Midnight pulled her phone out and took a deep breath. This was going to hurt. Midnight hit the call button, and the phone rang 3 times before Yasuda answered. "Hey Kayama, what's with the call? You miss hearing my voice that much?" "Azuki, I'm at UA. I've got Midoriya here." "Wow, he must be stoked. But, why'd you take him out of school? Also, the school should probably only let me do that." Midnight clenched her teeth. "I don't know how or why, but I found him outside school. He was beaten, just walking aimlessly. Recovery Girl is looking him over and will heal him." The line was quiet for 30 seconds before Yasuda spoke. "I'm on my way." Midnight let out a breath. "I'll make sure you have a guest pass waiting." "Thank you, Kayama." The line went dead, and Midnight turned as the door opened and Nizu walked in. "Sir Dash." He held a paw up. "Power Loader is heading to the gate." He'll escort this young boy's guardian to the nurse's office. The president stopped by her. So this is young Midoriya, the boy you're training? He has a quirk like yours. Yes, sir. The president sipped a cup of tea he seemed to always have on him. What school does he go to? Aldera Middle School, Midnight said as she watched Recovery Girl do her thing. I'll look into them. Midnight nodded, thank you, sir. Yasuda ran up to the front gate of UA, where she saw a hero waiting for her. Power Loader waved. Izuku Midoriya's guardian Yasuda Azuki, right? Yasuda nodded. Yes, sir. And your Power Loader, aren't you? That's me. Here, this is your guest pass. Yasuda slipped the pass on and followed Power Loader to the nurse's office. Her stomach was in knots as they approached. She entered, and dread filled her as she saw Izuku lying too still on the bed. He was wrapped in bandages, and she could see his school uniform with blood on it. She turned to see Midnight sitting with a small rodent Yasuda recognized as the President Nizu. Kayama, what happened to Aizu? Namuri sighed as she took her mask off. I don't know. I got lucky and we ran into each other. It had to have happened at his school, that much I'm sure of. I asked Nizu to look into the school. Yasuda was familiar with the president's exploits. He took down many groups and individuals who tried to hide their discrimination from society. She knew what he was going to do to Aldera, but it didn't matter. It won't make a difference. If that school goes away, they'll just all get shoved into another one together. Even if they're not all together, the ones with Aizu will spread their hate of him. He needs to get away from this area of Tokyo. Namuri agreed. She knew that when Aldera went down, Izuku would just get put somewhere else, and his bullies would be right behind him. Part of her brain had an answer already. It had been there since she learned about Shota and his kid. But could she do that? Did she want the responsibility of raising a kid? It was one thing to train him and make sure he had confidence. It was another thing to become his guardian. She had an image she curated for hero work, the R-rated hero Midnight, a dominating personality in a dominatrix outfit with a sadistic side. She flirted with reporters, took a sexy pose for the cameras after a fight, and made crude, perverted comments. Not that she cared. Midnight was just a means to manage the stress and make her feel powerful. No, her concern is how Izuku would handle the media being all over him because of her. She didn't have a right to put a scared kid through what those vultures could do to a person. Yasuda had a pleading look in her eyes. In the short time they've known each other, the orphanage worker had subtly and not so subtly made it known that she felt Namuri would make a great mom. Midnight not so much, but Namuri would be perfect for Izuku. Namuri looked at Izuku again. Something had been stirring in her since seeing him beaten and hobbling down the street. Sure, she was concerned for him, but it felt more than the concern she felt for an injured civilian. It felt so much worse than anything she had felt on the job. The pro was pulled from her thoughts as Izuku stirred and groaned. Recovery Girl kept the boy from sitting up as everyone stood nearby. Aizu, you awake, buddy? How are you doing? Yasuda asked as she moved to his side. Izuku groaned. Everything kinda hurts. Recovery Girl spoke up. I healed your most serious injuries and bandaged up what was left. You're gonna have soreness and bruises for a while. Izuku blinked slowly. Wow, Recovery Girl. He looked around and said, I have a notebook somewhere. Can you sign it? The nurse shook her head as Yasuda smiled and sat near the head of the bed, getting Izuku's attention. You rest up, you little nerd. I'll get her and Nizu to sign your book. Okay? Before I do that, though, I need you to tell me who did this. Izuku blinked and stared at the ceiling. I don't know. I can't remember. Yasuda looked at the assembled pros, and Recovery Girl spoke. It's okay, dear. You took a few hits to the head, so you may not remember right away. If you do, make sure to tell us. Izuku nodded silently. Nizu climbed up onto the bed. Hello? Young Midoriya, it's nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you too, sir. Nizu smiled. I just wanted to inform you that I will be personally looking into your school, and should I find anything, I will not hesitate to bring it to light. Wow. You don't need to go through all that trouble just for me. Izuku stammered out. Nizu just smiled his usual smile. Oh, trust me, young man, It's not just for your sake that I do this but for everyone's sake. Now you rest up and head home once you're feeling up to it. Izuku nodded again and watched the mouse-like creature leave. Once he was gone, and Recovery Girl had gone to her desk, Yasuda stood. Izuku, rest up. Kayama and I are gonna talk for a minute. We'll be back soon. Yeah, sure. I'll be here. Namiri led Yasuda to a meeting room so the two could talk privately. Once they were sitting, Yasuda looked at her with pleading eyes. Kayama, I know I've joked about it, but I'm serious. I think you should adopt him. You can help him so much more than letting him live in the orphanage. He needs to get away from this area of Tokyo. He needs a fresh start. You can give him that. Namiri sighed and looked at her mask. Can I really, though? I'm a fairly controversial hero. I knew that from the start, and it's part of why I made Midnight the way she is. I wanted the controversy. I wanted people to talk about me and what I stood for. The media had a field day when I joined the UA staff. They harassed students for months trying to see if there was a story of me coming on to one of my students. Namiri looked at Yasuda. How can I willingly bring Izuku into a life where he will be barraged by people wondering what I'm like or what I've done to him? They'll make accusations, and his face will be plastered all over the place, and I'm not even sure if I would be a good guardian. I've never even considered having kids before. Yasuda smiled sadly and leaned back in her chair as she twiddled her thumbs, you know. I've worked in an orphanage for a while. Even before then, I lived in one. Namiri's eyes widened. Yasuda hadn't really shared anything beyond being a bit of a punk and a fighter back in high school. The woman laughed at her expression. Yeah, I never got adopted either. My attitude as much as my quirk made sure of that. What is your quirk? I don't think I've ever seen you use it. Namiri knew they should stay on track, but honestly, she wanted to delay whatever point Yasuda was going to make even just a little. Yasuda smiled. It's called shockwave. I can absorb impact and send it out in all directions as a shockwave. The backlash is kinda harsh, so I never could be a hero. Also, it can be pretty destructive, but enough about that, back to my tale. She gave an over-the-top flourish as she started again. I aged out and had to live on my own starting at 18. It was rough. I got into some bad things and ended up making a lot of mistakes. But I turned it around when I realized I didn't want other kids like me to end up where I did. I got certified and started working. That's when I met Izuku. He's bright, full of life, and surprisingly a decent artist. Though his fashion sense drives me up a wall sometimes. Yasuda sighed. I don't know where I'm going with this. Maybe I just want you to know that I've seen parents pass up kids they'd be perfect for because they have so much self-doubt about whether or not they'll make good parents. I don't want Izuku to make the mistakes I made, and I don't want you to make the mistakes others have made. Take some time, Kayama, but please just bring it up with Izuku. He may surprise you with how he feels on the matter. Namiri nodded after a moment. Okay. But not today. I'll let him rest up, and next time we train, I'll bring it up. Yasuda smiled. Good. Now I'm gonna go see if he's okay to leave. Chapter 3, Moving Forward. Chapter Text. Izuku grunted as Namiri put him on his back again. It had been 3 days since his emergency visit to UA, and he hadn't been back to school yet. Yasuda told him he wouldn't be going back and that they'd find another way for him to continue school. Today was also the first day back training with Namiri. Izuku was happy to be doing something that would keep him completely distracted from unnecessary thoughts like how he remembered who attacked him and the fear that gripped his chest whenever he thought about bringing it up. Come on, get up. We'll take a 5-minute break, Namiri said, tossing a towel on his face. Izuku sat up and whipped the sweat off his face before joining Namiri on one of the garden benches. Since she didn't want to deal with the media, they trained in the orphanage's garden area. There were a few clear spots of grass that were perfect for sparring. Though his sparring session felt different, he wasn't sure what, but he knew something was on Namiri's mind. You Midnight Dash. Namiri waved a finger at him. I told you if I'm not in costume, you call me Namiri or Kayama, not Midnight. Izuku blushed and took a drink of water. Sorry, ma'am. Ms. Kayama, is everything okay today? You seem to be lost in thought. Namiri drank some water before sighing. I've just got something on my mind. Who knows? Maybe your opinion could help me figure it out. Izuku cocked his head to the side in confusion. What do you need my opinion on? If it's training, I can handle whatever you think I should do. You're more experienced, so I think it'd be best to follow your lead. No, it's not that. Namuri rubbed her face, and her eyes flicked to the porch. She could see Yasuda with a few of the younger kids watching them. They had all taken an interest in watching the pretty lady, and big sis Yasuda beat up big bro Izuku. Namuri caught Yasuda's eye, and the orphanage worker gave her a smile and 2 thumbs up. Izuku watched Namuri stretch and scratch the back of her head. I'm trying to save someone. They're in a bad situation, and I want to save them. But if I do it, the media will pester them. Namuri sighed. Maybe I should try to find someone else to help them. Someone who won't get as much attention for doing it. I think you should save them. Izuku's sudden response caught Namuri off guard. If you know them, I think it'll be better for you to save them. I know if I needed to be saved, I wouldn't care if the media took an interest in me because of who saved me. Izuku chuckled. They'd probably lose interest after a week anyways. Izuku stretched and missed Namuri going through several emotions at once. The pro-hero took a deep breath and opened her mouth, only to stop when her phone pinged. Namuri picked it up as Izuku looked over and saw her eyes darken for a moment. Midoriya, go get changed. Nizu found something, and he wants to talk with us. Izuku got up. Okay. As he ran off to his room, Izuku felt his stomach twisting in knots as he wondered what the president of UA could have found. He hoped it was just some dirt on Aldera in general and not anything specific to him. It didn't take long for Namuri, Yasuda, and Izuku to make it to UA and get up to the president's office. Izuku looked around the office as they entered. One wall was a large window that looked over the UA campus. In front of the window was a plush leather chair and a large dark wooden desk with a few chairs in front of it. Nizu smiled and climbed onto his desk. He spoke as he walked over to a teapot. I'm glad to see you're all here. Would you like some tea before we get started? The group all agreed, and once the tea was poured, Nizu sat back down. Now onto what I found. If you would direct your attention to your left. I found some security footage that may prove insightful to what happened to young Midoriya. Izuku tried not to geek out about the windows as they tinted, and a screen descended on the left wall. It flicked on, and Izuku felt himself tense seeing the back area of Aldera. Izuku's stomach dropped as the video showed Katsuki dragging Izuku out back. The two of them entered a blind spot. Nizu fast-forwarded a couple minutes until Katsuki left. It took Izuku a full 5 minutes to hobble out after him. 2 chairs were practically thrown across the room as Yasuda and Namuri stood up with fire in their eyes. That little fucking shit. He couldn't even go a month. I knew they should have just locked him up. The little psycho needs to be arrested. Izuku shrank back more. Yasuda was cursing, which meant she was furious, which was something Izuku had rarely seen. Namuri wasn't much better. While Yasuda was like a red-hot fire raging out of control, Namuri was a cold blue flame focused and devastating. Izuku was sure whatever she was thinking was worse than what Yasuda was saying. Nizu clicked a few buttons, and the screen retracted while the windows lost their tint. As you can see, it seems this Katsuki Bakugo broke the terms of his deal with the police. Now this, plus the other evidence I found, is more than enough to bury the school. I have not informed the police yet of Katsuki Bakugo's actions. Namuri spoke up. Why not, sir? This should be reported immediately. Nizu held a paw up. I wish to speak with Mr. Midoriya before taking action. Huh. Izuku looked around. Wait me, sir? Why do you want T to talk to me? I wish to know if you remembered that young Bakugo was your attacker or not. I also would like to know what action you think should be taken against him. Izuku felt nauseous. He didn't want to be here. Namuri and Yasuda were looking at him with concern, and he hated it. Nizu sighed. Kayama, could you take Ms. Azuki and step outside for a moment? Namuri looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Nizu's beady eyes made her decide it wasn't worth the fight. Come on, Azuki. Let's do as he says. Yasuda huffed and all but stormed out as she continued to fume. Izuku hoped she calmed down soon. Once they were gone, Nizu smiled. Now, Mr. Midoriya, did you remember this before I showed it? Izuku hesitated before nodding. Why, yes, I did. The day after it happened. And you didn't tell the others? Why not? Nizu sipped his tea as Izuku squirmed in his seat and tried to think of an answer. After a moment, Nizu spoke again. Could it be that you felt scared? That if you spoke against him again, the payback would be worse? Izuku nodded silently as he trembled and held back his emotions. Nizu simply smiled and sipped his tea before continuing. Rest assured that any action we decide to take against Mr. Bakugo will not result in you being punished. You do not deserve to be treated the way you were, and you deserve justice, so I ask again. What action do you want to take against him? Izuku sat frozen to his chair as the question echoed in his mind. He could get his revenge on Katsuki for all the hurt and suffering he caused. It would be easy just to tell Nizu to do whatever. Report it to the police and the public. Let all of Japan know Katsuki Bakugo is just a bully who hurts people. But that's not what he used to be. It wasn't an overnight thing. It was gradual. As they got older, he got worse. Izuku knew it wasn't entirely Katsuki's fault. People did nothing but praise Katsuki and look the other way when he did something wrong. It escalated, and now Katsuki thinks he's God's gift to the world and that nothing he does is wrong. Katsuki needs to be punished, but he also needs to be saved. A hero wouldn't abandon him, and Izuku is going to be a hero. Nizu smiled as the boy found his resolve and looked up at him. Izuku chewed his lip before speaking. I don't want him to go to jail or be barred from being a hero. Bakugo he was a good person. He's just strayed down the wrong path. I think if he was kept from being a hero, he would become a vigilante, which is a slippery slope to becoming a villain, and Bakugo being a villain would be bad for a lot of people. You believe Mr. Bakugo could be saved? Izuku nodded. I think therapy, community service, and stuff like that will help him. Heck, if you could get All Might to sit and talk to him, it'd help. Bakugo only really respects him as a hero. To Bakugo, All Might's the best because he never loses. I think that's part of what sent him down the wrong path. Nizu scribbled down a few notes as Izuku took a moment to collect himself. I guess if he keeps up good behavior and is monitored closely, you can tell if he changes, and if he does, then you can decide to let him take the entrance exam or not. You would give him another chance despite all he's done to you? Izuku nodded. I want to be a hero, and heroes save people. Bakugo is someone who needs to be saved, so I'll do my best. Nizu nodded and finished his tea. Then I suppose I will call him in and make things clear just how thin the ice he stands on is. I will also bring Aldera down for their negligence and discrimination. Thank you, sir. I think with some corrections, Bakugo could be a good hero. We will see. You still have many years till you're able to attend my university. I hope by then he is worthy of your kindness. Nizu said as he stood up and walked around his chair. Now let me explain things to Kayama and Azuki. I think it would best. Izuku nodded. Why yeah, I agree, sir. The car ride home was awkward, to say the least. Yasuda didn't think Bakugo deserved any of it, and maybe he didn't. Only time would tell. Namuri, on the other hand, seemed to agree partially with Izuku's decision, though her mind had been elsewhere all day, and so Izuku sat in the back of Namuri's car in an oppressive silence, wondering if he did the right thing. As they got out of the car, Namuri sighed. Midoriya, are you free tomorrow? Izuku looked up, surprised. He didn't have training, and he was sure Yasuda wouldn't let him go back to Aldera. Not that he wanted to, why? Namuri winked, a date of course. Izuku's face flushed, and Yasuda snorted with laughter. Namuri joined in as well, clutching her sides. I'm sorry I had to. Namuri pulled herself together and took a deep breath. I just have something to talk to you about. And don't worry, it's not about today, it's something else. I'll come by tomorrow morning, and we can go get some breakfast. Sound good? Izuku nodded. Why yeah, I'll make sure to be ready. Namuri patted his head. I'll see you then. Izuku didn't sleep well that night. He was constantly bouncing between second-guessing himself with his decision and wondering what Namuri could want to talk about. All in all, he stayed up late and woke up often in a cold sweat with panic gripping his chest and stealing his breath until it settled, and he drifted off to his restless sleep again. Namuri stood outside the orphanage in her civilian clothes. A pair of black skinny jeans, simple black sneakers, a gray shirt, and a black leather jacket. She sighed when she saw Izuku walk out. Midoriya, I'm gonna be honest. What the heck is that? Izuku looked down at his outfit. He had on his standard red sneakers and a pair of jeans as well as a green shirt and a gray hoodie over it that had sweater written on the front. "It's my jacket. Do you have more clothes like that?" Izuku nodded and lifted his hoodie to show that his shirt had suit printed on it. "Pretty much all the clothes I bought myself are like this." Namuri pinched the bridge of her nose. "Okay, we'll work on your fashion sense later. For now, come on." Namuri attracted considerably less attention walking around in her civilian clothes, so they didn't run into any trouble on their walk. Izuku rubbed the back of his head nervously. Ms. Kayama, where are we going?" "There's a cafe nearby. It's a good date spot, so remember it for when you get yourself someone special." She laughed as Yusuke blushed and followed her to the cafe. It didn't take long, and Izuku took in the sight of the cafe. It was a small little building on the corner of the street. The inside was a welcoming and calm environment. A pastry case ran along half the store's length full of various cakes and sweets. Behind the other half of the counter, a small kitchen bustling with a couple of employees cooking away. There were several tables inside and a patio outside where a few patrons were enjoying the fall weather. Namuri led him to a corner farther from the rest of the people eating inside. They placed their orders, and Namuri groaned as she stretched before leaning forward to look at Izuku. "You know, Azuki cares about you a lot. That's why she acted how she did yesterday. She just wants what's best for you." Izuku nodded. "I know. But sometimes what's best for the people isn't what's best for you. That's a real hero ideology, but you're a middle schooler, Midoriya. You shouldn't have to think like that." Izuku shrank back at her pointed look. Namuri sighed and sat back. "I'm just saying this, so you don't develop some suicidal levels of self-sacrifice." Her eyes scanned over him again. She saw the bags under his eyes and knew he hadn't slept well. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. "I don't think I've ever been that bad. I just want to help people." "I know. It's just you won't be able to help people if you're dead. So we'll make sure you know your limits well before you actually start hero work." Izuku nodded. "I'll try my best, ma'am." Their food arrived, and the two dug in, enjoying the quiet and the food. Izuku's continued to wonder about school and his future. Namuri, on the other hand, was trying to ignore the knots in her stomach and just eat the food. She felt ridiculous. How could she be nervous about something like this? She had faced down villains who had an advantage over her and still didn't feel as worried about what she was planning now. After they finished, Namuri pointed down the road. "Let's go this way." Izuku nodded and followed her. "So ma'am, what are we doing? Other than breakfast, which by the way was really good. Thank you for showing me that place." Namuri nodded. "No problem. Try not to break too many hearts there. Okay?" Izuku blushed. "See, come on, Ms. Kayama, that's not gonna happen." Namuri smirked. "Well, certainly not with that fashion sense." "Come on, I like them. Isn't that what's important when it comes to clothes?" Izuku said with a pout. Namuri waved her hand dismissively. To a point, but that's not important right now." Izuku noticed they turned and walked into a small quiet park. "Another date idea, ma'am?" Namuri laughed. "Good, you're learning. This park is pretty quiet most days, so it's a good idea for a simpler date." Izuku grumbled but felt himself relax as the two walked in silence till they came upon a bench and Namuri sat down. "Let's sit here for a minute. This is a good spot to talk about what I wanted to talk about." Izuku got nervous again as he shifted in his seat as Namuri took a deep breath and looked at him with her signature serious look. "Midoriya, you know Aldera is going to go down soon. You'll have to find a new school." Izuku nodded. "Yeah. I'm not really looking forward to it. I just hope the people there are nicer. Though with people from Aldera ending up in the same place as me, it won't last long till it's like Aldera again." "About that." Namuri scratched her cheek. "If you moved far enough away from this area, you wouldn't have to worry about your old bullies. You could have a fresh start." Izuku laughed. "That'd be nice, but that won't happen." "Not unless you get adopted, right?" Izuku nodded and smiled sadly. "Yeah, but I'm 14, and I'm halfway through my last year of junior high. No one is gonna adopt me and go through all that trouble." "I would." Namuri said it in such a plain tone that Izuku thought he must have heard her wrong. But before he could ask her to repeat that, Namuri continued. I've given some thought and listened to what you said about wanting someone to save you. I care about you, kid. I want what's best for you, and I think adopting you, making sure you're safe and have a home will do that. You mentioned the media during our training. Are you worried about how the media will react to Midnight having a kid and how they'll treat me? Namuri nodded. I don't want to cause you to suffer or dash. I won't, Izuku said a little louder than he meant. Sorry, I don't care about that. If I can have a home away from everything around Aldera, I'll be happy. I like training with you and learning from you. It's fun and challenging and yeah, I don't mind. If dealing with the media is the price to pay to get to live with you, I can handle it and no problem. Namuri definitely wasn't about to cry. Seeing Izuku with tears in his eyes wasn't going to make her cry either. Well then, if you're fine with it, I'd like to adopt you. Izuku smiled as tears streamed down his face. Why yeah, I'd like that too. Namuri turned away as tears started to spill over G-Good. I need to find a new place to live though. My apartment isn't big enough for 2 people to live there. Izuku chuckled. Can I help you look? He yelped as he was pulled into a hug. Of course you can, Midoriya. It's gonna be your home too, so you get a say in it. Izuku blushed and kept crying as he hugged Namuri back. The two sat like that, silently waiting for the tears to subside. Once they had pulled themselves together, Namuri smiled. Come on, Midoriya. Let's get back to Izuki. She's probably pulled together all the stuff so we can start the process. Then tomorrow we can start looking for a new place. Izuku nodded, okay ma'am. Namuri groaned as she stood up. You don't have to call me ma'am or Ms. Kayama. You can just call me Kayama or Namuri if you want. She chuckled as Izuku's face did an impression of a tomato. I'll try, but I think today has been a lot. Namuri patted his head. And it's not even 10 in the morning yet. Izuku groaned as the two started walking. All his issues seemed so small right now. There was a lightness in his chest as he walked alongside Namuri. Neither could contain their smiles as they made their way back to the orphanage. Katsuki was feeling great. Sure, he had to do stupid therapy, but that would be easy to bullshit his way through. He'd beaten up that bastard Deku, and now the nerd wasn't at school, so he must have learned his lesson, and now to top it off, UA's president wanted to meet with him. He wasn't even in high school, and his dream school was taking an interest in him. He just wished his damn parents would get off his back. Then everything would be perfect. Katsuki and his parents got escorted up to the president's office by some hero. He didn't really care. The guy was short and looked like a piece of construction equipment. Once he entered, he wasn't impressed by the layout. There wasn't much, but the view was decent, so he'd give them that. Nizu swiveled his chair around. The Bakugo family. It's wonderful you could show up. I'm President Nizu. It's a pleasure to have you here. Katsuki would scoff at the fact that the president is a rat, but his mother had been watching him like a hawk, and he knew she'd smack him if he did anything. Mitsuki smiled. We're thankful for the invitation. Sir, but what is the meaning of this meeting? Nizu smiled and sipped his tea as his windows tinted and a screen lowered to their left. Katsuki scoffed internally, thinking the president was just showing off. Now, as his parents, please be calm. I'm going to show you a video, and then we will discuss how things will proceed. Katsuki could feel his mother's annoyance. He ignored it. He hadn't done anything wrong, so there's nothing for him to be worried about. The screen clicked on and showed Aldera and Katsuki dragging that nerd out back. The video fast-forwarded to show Katsuki leaving, then skipped ahead again to show Izuku limping away. Before he could even comprehend the idea of why or how the president of UA had this video or why it mattered what he did to that villain Deku, Katsuki's mother had the back of his neck in a death grip. What the actual fuck, Katsuki? Do you think you can just do whatever you want and dash? Nizu held a paw up. Now Ms. Bakugo, you can discipline him later. For now, I would like to inform you of all that has and will happen. Young Midoriya was brought in with bruised and cracked ribs, a concussion, minor internal bleeding, and severe bruising across most of his body. Luckily, Recovery Girl is the best for a reason, and he has recovered fully. Nizu refiled his tea as Mitsuki glared at her son. The president took another sip before continuing. It only took a few days to find this footage and so much more evidence. It seems Aldera practices and promotes Quirk discrimination amongst its faculty and students. I will be revealing this information and making sure that school is closed. Masaru sighed, that's good. But what about Katsuki? He broke his deal with the police. Why have you not informed them? Nizu smiled, because Izuka Midoriya is a kind young man who decided that instead of letting your son suffer the consequences of his actions, Midoriya decided your son is worth another chance. Mitsuki sighed, that boy, just like his mother, far too kind for his own good. Nizu nodded, he is quite kind. Though let us stay on topic. The president looked at Katsuki, who was fuming with rage. From this day until you graduate high school, you will be monitored by me. If I do not see any significant changes in your behavior by the time you apply to UA, I will not allow you to take the entrance exam. Any questions? So the police won't be informed about Katsuki's actions? Mitsuki asked. Nizu nodded, though your original deal with the police still exists, so young Bakugo may not even make it to high school. Will we notice the monitoring or dash? Nizu smiled. I, along with my assets, are very good at making sure the target doesn't notice. Your day-to-day life won't be affected by this. I promise you that. Mitsuki and Masaru looked at each other. Then their son, who was shaking with visible anger. The only reason Katsuki hadn't blown up was that he didn't want to hurt his chances of UA. If I ever see that fucking Deku, No, I fucking can't because he did this shit to me again. Once I'm in UA, he is dead. Masaru sighed as he put a hand on Katsuki's shoulder and squeezed it tightly enough to make his son wince. I'm sorry for his actions and that we failed yet again. I am thankful to Midoriya for giving our son another chance. My wife and I understand that by all rights, our son doesn't deserve this, but we have it, and we will make the best use of it. I can only hope Katsuki will be put back on the right path before it's too late. Nizu set down his tea, wonderful to hear. Now before you leave, there is someone who wishes to speak privately with young Bakugo, if that's all right. Mitsuki looked up. Who wants to talk to the brat? Nizu's office door opened, and All Might stepped in. The family gasped, and Katsuki shrank a bit under the number one's stare. Young Bakugo, I believe we need to have a chat about what it means to be a hero. Chapter 4, Moving Out. Katsuki felt like his head was spinning. First, that slut hero drags him to the police, and they have the audacity to threaten him all because he was putting a villain in his place. He had to go to therapy like some weakling, and then that bastard Deku did something, so now UA and All Might were on his side. Even though he's a villain waiting to happen, even if his quirk is shitty. He ground his teeth as his parents and Nizu left him with All Might. He wasn't even sure if All Might was talking. All he could hear was the blood rushing through his veins. Deku had hurt his chances and his reputation before he even got the chance to start hero school. He was gonna kill that damn nerd when Katsuki's head snapped up as All Might gripped his shoulder. Young Bakugo, take a deep breath and listen. I have several things you need to hear. The tone in his voice brought Katsuki back around, and the young boy begrudgingly paid attention. All Might smiled, good. Now I've heard about everything from Tsukachi and Nizu. I heard you're a fan of mine as well. Katsuki scoffed, of course I am. Anyone who isn't a villain or an idiot. Then why do you practice quirk discrimination? The question caught him off guard. Quirk discrimination? The fuck does he mean by that? What? You consider young Midoriya and others lesser because of their quirks, do you not? That was a stupid question, and he didn't even get why All Might was bringing it up, so what? They are lesser. They're just extras who will get in the way of me winning when I'm a pro. You think winning is what's important to a pro hero? All Might asked, the disappointment evident on his face. Of course it is. You're number one cause you don't lose. Victory over the villains is all that matters. All Might scoffed. The number one hero scoffed at him before saying, if that was the case, Endeavor would be number 1, and I would be number 8 at best. Most of the top 10 solve more cases and arrest more villains than I do. What? You're stronger than all of them combined dash. And yet they would still rank higher than me if it wasn't for the other factors that go into the Billboard charts. The only reason I'm ranked number 1 is that I do interviews, charity work, and visit with people who are fans. I interact with the people I'm sworn to protect. If you ask me, victory over villains is not the most important part of being the symbol of peace. Making people feel safe and letting them know I will do my best to keep their fears at bay is what makes me the symbol of peace. All Might shifted and sat across from Katsuki, who was looking at him in confusion. All Might continued speaking. From what I can tell, young Bakugo, you value victory over your opponents. You view others as beneath you and believe physically assaulting them will teach them a lesson and make them stay in line. All Might's eyes sparked with an intensity that made Katsuki stiffen. That sounds more like a villain than a hero to me. Katsuki's hands popped. What? I'm not some fucking loser villain like Deku's going to be. All Might sighed. You remind me so much of a boy I knew in high school. So much passion and that same desire for victory over others. I looked up to him and thought he would be a great hero. Do you know where he is now? Katsuki crossed his arms and scoffed. Like it matters. He was obviously some extra who didn't matter if he's not a hero now. All Might shook his head. You and he are so much alike it's scary. The boy who I looked up to is gone. He strayed down off the path of the hero, and now he's in Tartarus paying for his crimes. I would hate to see you end up there too. All Might stood and looked down at Katsuki. As you are now Katsuki Bakugo, you can never be a hero, but people have been kind to you, so you have the chance to change and hopefully become a true hero. With that statement, Katsuki sat feeling shattered and numb as All Might left. Katsuki stared out the window with his thoughts going a mile a minute but also felt sluggish and slow. Yasuda smiled and stacked up the papers. All right, I'll get these to the old lady upstairs. Once it's processed, you'll have to do an interview with her and a rep from Child Services. I'm sure you'll be fine, but it'll take a couple days to find someone. So in the meantime, you got some time to find an apartment. How's that going, by the way? Izuka smiled as Namuri groaned. I hate it so much, but we've got a few that look good. We're gonna check them out later. Hopefully, this time, the landlord doesn't recognize Kayama, Izuka said, making his future guardian groan again. Kayama rubbed her face. It was so embarrassing. I could barely keep a straight face. Yasuda and Izuku laughed as Kayama stood up. I'm going to work. I'll be back after school. So Midoriya and I can go check out the apartments. Have a good day at work, Kayama, Izuku said, making the woman smile as she left for UA. 13 took their helmet off in the teacher's lounge inside. Those third years, I swear. Midnight blinked and forced herself to stop staring and actually talk to them. What did they do this time? 13 started making tea as they spoke. They decided rescue training wasn't hard enough. So they started challenging each other to complete the rescue ops with various handicaps. Midnight chuckled. How did that go for them? 13 smiled and Midnight committed it to memory. Oh, they were having a blast till I turned up the difficulty to second semester 4th years. Then suddenly they were scrambling all over the place. That's so mean. I love it, Midnight said between laughter. 13 chuckled as they sat down. So, how's it going with Midoriya? That's his name, right? Midnight nodded. Yeah. I filled out some forms this morning, and I'll have an interview in a few days so they can decide if I'm fit to be his guardian. We'll also be looking for a new apartment later today. 13 smiled. Honestly, I'm kinda surprised you went through with it. I never would have thought Namuri Kayama would adopt a kid. Midnight blushed but did her best to appear confident. Well, I'm just full of surprises. Maybe you'll get to learn some of them. She bit her tongue as 13 giggled and sipped their tea. Guess I'll just have to keep a better eye on you, so I can see some of these surprises. Midnight took a breath and felt a surge of real confidence. Maybe now would be a good chance. The door slid open as Midnight's loudest friend entered. Wyo Kayama, how's it going with the kid? Midnight sighed and rubbed her face as Present Mike entered. Mike, please don't shout that where students could hear. Present Mike laughed as he closed the door and started chatting like he didn't just kill Midnight's best chance. Namuri's heart warmed as she saw Izuka smile when she approached. How was work today, Kayama? Namuri sighed. I had some interesting essays turned in today. I think a few of the Hero Corps students could use a refresher on their art history. Izuka laughed as he followed her towards the first apartment they were going to check out today. Apartment hunting had been a bust over the past couple of days. Most didn't feel right, some had issues, and a few were just not as advertised. They both felt good about today, though. It only took 3 apartments before they found one they both thought was good. It was twice the size of Namiri's current apartment and in a good neighborhood. That also meant it was twice as expensive, but Namiri didn't really care, her hero check could cover it, and UA paid their teachers well, so expenses wouldn't be an issue. There were apparently other heroes who lived here, so the apartment complex had security to keep reporters and other nonsense away. The apartment was on the 5th floor. A short hallway from the door led to a living room and kitchenette. To the living room's right was a short hallway. On the left was a bedroom and across from it a bathroom. At the end of the hall was the master bedroom that had its own bathroom. The walls were painted a soft gray, and a window in the living room looked out over the street and would be a pretty nice view of the sunset. Namiri whistled. "What do you think, Midoriya? 'Cause I kinda like this one." Izuku looked around a bit before nodding. "Yeah, it looks good. The price isn't bad, right? I don't want you spending more than we can." Namiri rolled her eyes. "I know I give off this wonderful, fun vibe, but I am an adult. I can manage my money, and besides, I'm a hero and a teacher. I make more than you think." "Okay then, yeah. I like this one," Izuku stammered out as he walked over to the window. Namiri smiled. "All right then, let's get it." The day of the interview was coincidentally the day Namiri finalized her move to her new apartment. "Now I just need to secure my child and move him in, and we'll be set." Namiri choked on her tea and nearly spilled it. The thought had hit her out of nowhere. She knew technically, as his guardian, he would be in a legal sense her child. She had also been avoiding saying or thinking that because it felt strange. She had never thought about a family before, and now she was getting one. It was small, just the two of them, but still, it would technically be a family. Namiri just hoped she could be a good guardian and make Izuku happy. The boy deserves some happiness after everything he suffered through. Yasuda came in and nodded. "Old lady is ready for you. Are you ready to go?" Namiri stood and nodded. "Yeah, let's do this." Yasuda led her up to the office and let her in. Waiting for Namiri was an elderly woman in a simple pale gray blouse, with thin black-framed glasses resting on the top of her gray hair. She sat behind the sturdy dark desk. "Ah, Kayama. It's good to see you again." The older woman motioned next to her. "This is Miss Sayaki from Child Protective Services. She'll be speaking to you today." Miss Sayaki wore a pristine black suit with a skirt. Her black hair was tied up in a bun, and Namiri shivered under the fiercely stern gaze of the child services worker. Sayaki gave a polite nod as Namiri sat down. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Ms. Kayama. Shall we get started?" Namiri nodded. "Of course, ma'am." The interview was fairly standard. Sayaki had done a comprehensive background check on Namiri before coming and brought up various things from her past, some Namiri had kind of forgotten about. Nothing was incriminating, but there were plenty of reports from her time in school. Incidents where students said she had used her quirk on them, but since they were lies and no proof was provided, she never got punished for it, but she didn't need to be. The bullies were enough punishment as is. "There were quite a few accusations during your time in middle and high school, though no actions were taken, and no proof was found. Why was this?" Namiri huffed. "Discrimination. My quirk wasn't and still isn't seen as very heroic, and as such, bullies were prevalent in my life. I looked at Midoriya's records and noticed his were similar. I also received a call from your boss, President Nizu, in which he provided me disturbing evidence of just how poorly Midoriya was treated." Sayaki adjusted her seating. "Nizu has informed me of his plans for Aldera, but I'm also worried about what will happen with Midoriya when his old school goes down. As it stands now, he is simply not attending at all." Namiri nodded. "I have an apartment." She handed over a thin folder with the details of her new home. "It's in a much better place and it's far from Aldera, so when he rejoins school, none of his old tormentors should be there." Sayaki nodded and looked over the details. "This is a good neighborhood." Namiri felt good. The interview was going fine, and Sayaki seemed to approve until, "But I have a concern. It's to do with your hero identity, Midnight." Namiri blushed a bit. I can assure you that Midnight is just a persona I use for hero work. I drop it when I don't need it. Sayaki raised her hand. "I understand that. This isn't my first time dealing with a hero who wanted to adopt a child. It's not so much the persona that has me concerned. Your character may be inappropriate at times, but there is plenty of evidence to show you dropping it when it is unneeded. My concern has to do with you being a hero in general." Namuri felt a little relieved but also incredibly worried as Sayaki continued. "As you know better than anyone here, a hero's life is not an easy or safe one. The risk to you and those close to you is great. While you aren't as high on the list as others, you are a well-known hero. Not only would there be media attention on you for adopting a child, but there will also be villains who may have a grudge against you." Sayaki leveled her stern red eyes at Namuri. "My top concern is Midoriya's physical and mental well-being in that situation." Namuri nodded. "I understand. In regards to the media, Midoriya knows already and has told me he doesn't mind. As for villains who may target me, you saw that my new apartment houses several heroes and has increased security as such. I am also a UA teacher, which allows me access to several resources that I can employ to help secure my home even better." Sayaki nodded and scribbled something down before moving on to other topics. Namuri wasn't sure how much time went by, but eventually, Sayaki seemed satisfied and stood up. "Well, Ms. Kayama, I had my doubts. Heroes often wish to do well by the kids but often fall flat. As of right now, I can't see any reason to not allow you to adopt Midoriya. Once all the paperwork is finalized, I will stop by several times over the next year to assure everything is being taken care of properly." Namuri stood. "I hope I don't disappoint Miss Sayaki. I will do my best to make sure Midoriya has a good life." Sayaki smiled. "I hope you do. Now here are the last of the documents to sign. Once that's done, you will be the guardian of Izuku Midoriya." Namuri took the paperwork and smiled. "Thank you, Miss Sayaki, for allowing this to happen." Sayaki shook her head. "This is because of you. I hope you both have a wonderful future as a family." Sayaki bowed before leaving. The elderly head of the orphanage smiled. "Well done, Kayama. Now why don't you run off to Izuku and Yasuda? She can take care of that paperwork once it's signed." Namuri bowed. "Of course, ma'am. Thank you for everything." She all but ran out and back downstairs. Namuri was surprised to find Yasuda and the others set up for what looked like a party while Izuku was swamped by the younger kids, who were all crying to varying degrees about big bro Izuku leaving them. One girl in particular, with a long tangled mess of teal hair, had attached herself quite firmly to Izuku's chest. Izuku smiled up at Namuri. "How did it go?" Namuri chuckled. "It went well. Just gotta sign this. Then you're stuck with me." The young girl wailed. "Aizu's leaving." Izuku patted the girl's head. "It's okay, Mawabi. Just 'cause I'm getting adopted doesn't mean you'll never see me again. I promise I'll come by and see you all." Mawabi sniffled her sea-green eyes, staring up at him. "You promise?" Izuku nodded. "I promise." Namuri was a little startled when Mawabi smiled, showing off a terrifying number of shark teeth. The children seemed in better spirits, knowing their big brother wouldn't leave them forever when he moved out. Yasuda chuckled and pulled Namuri over to a table so she could finish the paperwork. "It's gonna be different not having the little nerd around all the time. Be sure to come with him when you can." "Okay." Namuri nodded. "I'll try to." Once the paperwork was signed, Yasuda whisked it away, and once she returned, the young woman clapped her hands. "All right, everybody. You know why we're here. Our wonderful little hero nerd has found a home and a family for himself. So let's give him a proper send-off to his new life and hope he doesn't forget about us when he makes it big." Everyone cheered as Izuku blushed, but the smile on his face never faded as they got into things. Namuri couldn't stop smiling as the party went on. All of the kids had pulled their allowances and got Izuku a gift. A dark green hoodie that said "Family" found in white letters. Izuku chuckled, and Namuri shook her head at his odd taste in clothes. Yasuda patted her shoulder. "No matter how much you try, he will never stop wearing that." Namuri sighed. "I just want him to know when to wear something else and to have something else to wear." Yasuda shook her head. "The boy is hopeless in some aspects. I'm just glad it's someone else's problem now." Namuri smiled. "How hard are you gonna cry tomorrow when he leaves?" Yasuda shoved her lightly. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm an uncaring orphanage worker forced to look after all these dastardly children." The two women quickly broke down into quiet laughter. Yasuda sighed. "It will suck not having him here. He helped out so much around here and loved talking heroes with me. He did promise to come back, and the boy loves you and everyone else here, so there's no way he'll back out of that promise," Namuri said as she watched Izuku pick up a couple of the kids. They giggled, and several climbed him, causing him to fall out as they swarmed him with hugs. The next morning was spent packing the few things he owned and loading them into a moving van. Yasuda cried as she pulled Izuku into a tight hug. "Be safe, you little nerd, and make sure to keep in touch, okay?" Izuku cried just as much as he hugged her back. "Sure thing, Yasuda. I'll be sure to. Don't let the other kids cause too much trouble." Yasuda laughed. "I'll keep them in line, don't you worry. Now get going. You gotta get moved in today." Another round of hugs and tears later, Izuku was in the van next to Namuri, who smiled as she started the van. "You ready?" Izuku nodded. "Yeah, I'm ready." The ride was quiet as Izuku thought about how different things were because one day, he ran down an alleyway and ran into the woman who is now his legal guardian. It was interesting, and the weeks felt like they flew by. His life changed so quickly that he kind of hoped things mellowed out for a bit to let him process it all. Namuri sighed internally. How had she ended up here? A few weeks ago, she had to take a different route from her normal patrols to avoid some annoying paparazzi that were around because of some singer that was in town. Now she had a kid, and they were moving into a new apartment. She'd have to make sure there was actual food in the house, and she needed to get him into school so he could finish and move on to high school. Oh God, why did she agree to this? Her eyes flicked over, and she saw Izuku smiling as he scrolled through some hero news. "Oh yeah, that's why. Yeah, I can handle this. Probably. Most likely." Chapter 5: New Beginning. Izuku woke up and was confused. The ceiling wasn't right. He looked around the room, and it was larger than his room should be until it clicked that this was his new room in his new home where his guardian? Or mom? Izuku shook his head. "No, that's not yet." He jumped a bit at the short, rapid knocks on his door. "Midoriya, you up?" Yeah. I'll be out in a minute." Namuri sighed. "It's all right. We got a bit of stuff to look over and finalize, but you can take your time." Izuku got ready for the morning and met Namuri in the kitchen. She finished signing some papers, then looked up to him. "Ah, Midoriya, there are a couple things you need to sign." "All right, what are they?" he asked nervously as he sat across from her. "This one is for medical stuff. Basically allows me access to your medical records and such." Izuku signed it after a quick glance and nodded. "And the other?" Namuri blushed a bit and cleared her throat. "It's on the issue of your name. You can keep it or take mine, if you want." Izuku looked over the papers. The longer he took to do anything, the more nervous Namuri felt. Eventually, something clicked in Izuku's eyes. "Can I have your last name as my middle name?" Namuri blinked, and Izuku blushed as he elaborated. Well, I like my last name. It reminds me of the few memories I have of my parents, but I want to be part of this family, and I think a middle name would be good because most people don't ask for it, and it doesn't show up on official records, so it'll be something for myself, you know. It'll be something for just me to remind me of who's my family now." Namuri wasn't about to cry, and if anyone said differently, she would hurt them. She shook her head yes as she didn't trust her voice. Izuku smiled as he tried not to cry either. He filled out the paperwork and double-checked it before handing it back to Namuri, who put it in a folder. A comfortable silence fell over them as they looked at the folder. After a moment, Namuri clapped her hands. "Let's make some breakfast." Izuku nodded and was surprised by how well Namuri could cook. It wasn't that he thought she would be bad at it. It's just Namuri didn't seem like the type to like cooking. After breakfast, Izuku realized he still didn't have a school to go to. What do I do today?" Namuri double-checked her bag. Your usual workout routine and whatnot. I've started the process of getting you into a school so you can finish junior high. You should be able to start going in a couple days. Until then, I guess learn about the area and try not to get lost." Izuku nodded. "Okay. Have a good day at work then." Namuri smiled. "Have a good day as well, Midoriya." Since he still didn't have anything to do, Izuku went through his morning workout minus a jog since he planned to wander around for a bit. Once he was dressed in his usual red sneakers, jeans, and new hoodie, he started learning the area. Izuku thought about his new neighborhood as he walked around. The orphanage he grew up in wasn't in a bad neighborhood. It was just closer to the bad ones than this area was. He spotted a few stores he'd have to check out more another day. As Izuku walked, he noticed a few school uniforms passing by and realized junior high students were probably heading to school now. School. It would be interesting and weird since they were in the final months of school. It would be odd to get a new student. Izuku hoped he would make friends or at least keep new bullies from showing up until high school. His thoughts were interrupted as he bumped into someone. Izuku immediately felt panic rise up in him as he stepped back and ducked his head. Sorry. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. He felt worse as a girl spoke. Hey, it's okay. I wasn't looking where I was going. No harm done, so yeah. Izuku risked a look and saw nothing. He stared at where her head should be for a second too long as the girl stepped back. You're staring at me. Izuku blushed. I'm sorry. I just wasn't expecting this. He saw a floating silver bracelet fly back and forth. It's fine. I'm used to it. And no, I'm sorry it's rude to stare at people. Even if your quirk seems really cool. The girl stopped her attempt to walk around him and said a little defensively, Wait, what? You think this seems cool? Izuku blushed and stepped back reflexively. Sorry, it's just, it seems really useful for hero work and stuff. You could do a lot of infiltration and scouting. It would make it easier for heroes going into unknowns to have someone who can walk around mostly freely and not be spotted. He clenched his eyes shut against the deafening silence between them. The girl spoke quietly after a moment. You think I could do hero work? Izuku nodded quickly. Why? You'd excel at stealth and ambushes. He risked a glance up. Not that it mattered since he couldn't tell what kind of face she was making. After another moment, the bracelet extended towards him. Toru Hagakure, thanks for what you said. Izuku relaxed a bit and spoke as he reached for where he was pretty sure her hand was. Izuku Midoriya dread filled him as he grabbed her closed fist. And the two stood there for a moment before Toru started laughing and took his hand, giving it a firm shake. Sorry, Midoriya. I can't help myself but give people the awkward fist bump handshake mix-up. Getting his hand back, Izuku took a shaky breath as he clutched his chest. Her laughter didn't hurt like he was used to. Instead, he smiled a bit and chuckled. I'd probably do the same with your quirk. Toru looked at her other wrist, which had a pink watch on it, and sighed. Well, I better get going. Don't want to be late for school. Izuku nodded. Sorry for bumping into you, Hagakure. Have a good day. You too, Midoriya. Hope you don't get in trouble for skipping. She was gone before he could correct her on that. Not that it mattered. He probably wouldn't run into her again. Toru sighed as she sat at her desk. Yesterday morning had been interesting, and she was surprised that she was still thinking about it. That random guy she bumped into had been so scared. He looked like a kicked puppy, and she wondered if he was suffering. Then when he saw her and she prepared for all the jokes or stupid comments about her invisibility, but they never came. He just got this glint in his eye and told her what she always hoped people would say, that she could be a hero and that she could do a good job at it. Toru felt great the rest of the day and even this morning. The comments and jokes at her expense had stung less yesterday, and she felt hopeful that she could keep these good vibes going. But as her usual tormentors approached, she felt that maybe the vibes wouldn't stay as good as she hoped. The middle girl, who stood a few inches shorter than the other two, smiled down at Toru. Her icy blue eyes shone with malice as she spoke. Hey little thief, have you seen Shira's wallet? She can't seem to find it anywhere. Toru looked up, her eyes flicking to all three girls, then to a girl in the front of the class with a mutation quirk that gave her reptilian features. She was frantically searching her bag and desk as everyone packed up to leave today. I don't know. I've been back here all day. The center girl smiled as the other two moved to either side of Toru. But how can we know that for sure? Someone like you could be anywhere and we wouldn't know it. Why don't you come clean, little thief? And I'm sure Shira will forgive you. We don't want to have to get a teacher involved in this, right? Toru sighed. I told you I don't dash. The girl to her left scoffed and grabbed her bag while the other quickly put a hand on her to keep her from getting up. The girl with her bag pulled Shira's wallet out of her pocket, then dropped it into Toru's bag. She turned with a grin as she pulled it back out and said, "Hey Shira, isn't this yours?" The lizard girl brightened but still looked nervous. Toru knew they picked on her as well. "Why, you found it?" The girl tossed it to her. "Looks like Hagakure had it in her bag. Though can you blame her? She's got a thief's quirk, so it only makes sense." A few people looked at her with mixed expressions, and Shira looked conflicted but said nothing as she quickly grabbed her things and left. The three tormentors laughed and made comments about Shira as they left. Toru just sighed and picked her bag up off the ground before moving to the exit. Another day done, and more people who'll avoid her from now on. She considered just skipping school tomorrow. Maybe she'd run into Midoriya. No, if she did that, her parents would get onto her. It was bad enough with how much they fretted after she told them about the bullying. They had gone to the school and the teachers had made attempts to curb the bullying, but the bullies just backed off until the teachers were satisfied and stopped paying so much attention. It wasn't that bad, though. They just accused her of being a thief, bump into her on purpose and say it was her quirk's fault for making it so hard to notice her, and occasionally pull stunts like they did today with Shira's wallet. Toru jumped a bit as the girl she was just thinking about popped out from around a corner. Shira's green scales reminded her of the scared-looking guy she had run into. Oh, Shira, what can I do for you?" The lizard girl twitched nervously, her yellow eyes flicking around as she wrung her hands. "I'm sorry, Hagakure. I know you didn't steal my wallet, but if I said anything—" Toru shook her head. "It's fine, Shira. I'm used to their antics. Keep yourself safe. That's all that matters. I can manage on my own." She didn't look happy, but Shira nodded, "Okay, and I'm sorry again." The two girls parted ways, and Toru sighed as she walked down the streets. Once she was getting close to a convenience store, she decided to get something before heading home to try and make the day feel better overall. As she approached the doors, they opened, and Toru came face to face with a pair of emerald eyes she recognized. Izuku eeped and stepped out of the way. "Ah, sorry. It's Hagakure, right? I didn't mean to dash." Toru waved her hands. "No, it's fine." "Wow, I didn't think I'd run into you again. Midoriya?" Izuku nodded. "Yeah. I got some errands to run, so I'll see you around." Toru raised an eyebrow. Not that he could tell. "You'll see me around?" Izuku blushed. No, sorry. It's just an expression dash." He stopped his frantic apology as Toru giggled. "I'm messing with you, Midoriya. I'll see you around as well." Toru slipped into the store as Izuku gave a small wave before heading his own way. Toru smiled as she walked down the aisles, looking for a snack to get. She felt lucky to run into Midoriya again. He still looked like a kicked puppy, but somehow not as sad as yesterday, though she wondered why both times she ran into him, he was in street clothes and not a school uniform. Maybe he's homeschooled? She wondered aloud as she grabbed a candy bar and headed back to the register. Another day at school, and Toru's mood was souring. Her mom bugged her about buying candy on the way home, which wasn't an actual issue since she knew her mother loved her and loved to give her grief. This morning, though, her older brother had seen fit to eat the food she had claimed the night before, and then she ran into the trio of bullies on the way to school, and they had their usual round of insults to hurl at her. The only thing of note was the whispers about a transfer student, but they were in the last semester of their third year of junior high. Who the hell would transfer schools at a time like that? Maybe they were at the school that got busted for discrimination. She sighed, not really wanting to deal with someone who went to a school like that. Their homeroom teacher came and everyone quieted down. He smiled tightly, and Toru could tell he was baffled by what he was doing. "So we have a transfer student. Treat him well, all right?" The door opened, and Toru's eyes widened as a familiar mop of green hair and emerald eyes walked in. Izuku smiled nervously. "Hi, I'm Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you." Izuku shrank back from the murmurs, and the teacher raised his hand to quiet them. "Shush. Midoriya, take the empty desk by Hagakure." Izuku nodded and found his way to the desk on Toru's right. He smiled a bit nervously at her as he sat down. Toru gave a small wave and whispered, "So you weren't just skipping school when I saw you?" Izuku blushed. No, just waiting for paperwork to finish." Toru nodded. "Tell me more at lunch." Izuku's brain froze as the teacher continued going on about their final semester. Ignoring the fact that it was a girl, this was the first time in longer than he could remember where someone wanted to talk to him during lunch. He smiled a bit and felt hopeful. Lunchtime rolled around, and as Toru and Izuku stood, one of Toru's main bullies spoke up. "Hey, new kid, better be careful. You're sitting next to our class's resident thief who knows what'll go missing when you're not looking." Izuku looked at Toru and could tell even without being able to see her face what was going on. Izuku looked at the girl and said, "I'll keep my eye on you then." He turned and looked at Toru. "Hagakure, can you show me where the cafeteria is?" Toru nodded as she spoke. "Why yeah, Midoriya, this way." The two walked in silence to the cafeteria. Toru wondering how the guy who looked like a kicked puppy, I need a better description for him, suddenly hit them with that confidence. Izuku was mentally freaking out about suddenly saying something like that. What the hell was that? I've never talked like that to someone my age, and I didn't even stutter. Izuku jumped a bit as Toru giggled. He relaxed and started to chuckle as well as they made their way into the cafeteria. "Wow, Midoriya, I had this impression of you being kinda shy and stuff, but I see you've got more going on." Izuku shook his head and arms. "And no, I don't know why or how I said that. It just slipped out." Toru laughed again, and as they got their food, she asked, "So you just moved to this area?" Izuku nodded. "Why yeah, my guardian and I just moved here a few days ago. I'm still settling in and learning the area." "Guardian? Not mom or dad, or even parent?" "Well, that convenience store where we bumped into each other has the best selection. There's also some pretty good arcades and cafes around it." Izuku followed her to a table near the corner where he noticed fewer people tended to sit. He felt some comfort and concern that she basically did what he did whenever he ate in the cafeteria. As they sat, Toru asked, "So I gotta know, did you come from that one school that's all over the news?" Izuku felt a pit in his stomach form as he nodded slowly. "Aldra, it wasn't a nice place to be." Toru's shoulders slumped. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have brought it up." Izuku waved his hands. No, it's fine. Aldra sucked in a lot of ways, and I'm glad it went down." Toru nodded, and the conversation kinda died a bit until Izuku spoke quietly. Your quirk? How does it work?" She stared at his entirely serious, if nervous-looking face for a moment. That moment stretched, and she watched him fidget. But before he could backpedal, she spoke. "I'm not sure, actually. My dad can turn parts of his body invisible, and my mom can change the color of her skin, but it's all at once, so like she can only turn one color." Izuku perked up. Did you turn invisible when you got your quirk? And you've been like this the whole time?" "Yep," Toru said, adding a pop to the P. "I remember waking up and going to the bathroom one day and not being able to see myself. Best guess that doctor gave was that my parents' quirks combined, and now I'm stuck as this." Izuku nodded. "That must suck a bit. I mean, not being able to see yourself and all. Though I wonder, how does your dad's quirk work?" Toru shrugged. "I never asked him. I kinda haven't tried anything with my quirk. It made me invisible and I don't need to focus on it, so I decided to dedicate my time to other skills." That annoyed Izuku slightly, but he also understood why she wouldn't try to mess with her quirk, since it seemed to be a constant that took no effort. So it made sense for her to focus on other skills. Also, he had to remind himself that not everyone wanted to be a hero. "I want to be a hero, so I'll need to be pretty stealthy and know how to throw a punch." Toru watched as Izuku's eyes lit up, and he asked, "You want to be a hero?" "Yeah. Ever since I can remember, I've always loved the idea of helping people, and being a hero always felt like the best way to do that. And I'm guessing by your reaction you want to be a hero too." Izuku nodded. "Why yeah, I've always wanted to be a hero. Saving people and proving that people are more than their quirks." He must have a quirk people don't like. Maybe that's why he said Aldra sucked. Could he have gotten bullied for it? Toru chewed her lip and decided to go for it. "So what is your quirk, Midoriya?" Izuku slumped a bit. It's called narcolepsy. Do you know the hero Midnight?" Even though he couldn't see her, he knew she was giving him a look. Izuku waved his hands. Before you start thinking the usual thing. Just, I look up to her and whatnot because our quirks are basically the same." Toru blinked and chuckled. "Oh, that's pretty cool actually. You'll do great as a hero with that kind of quirk." Izuku felt the tension leave his body. He hadn't realized how tense he had felt when she asked about his quirk. Wow. You mean that? Toru nodded, yeah. I mean, there's already a hero with that kind of quirk, so if she can do it, I don't see why you can't. Izuku smiled, and Toru decided that fit his face better than the scared puppy look. The two chatted idly as they finished their lunch. Namiri sank into the couch in the teacher's lounge and yawned as Shota placed some coffee on the table in front of her and sat at the other end of the couch. Namiri eyed the white mug suspiciously. Who are you and what happened to Eraserhead? Shota grumbled. I tried to be nice to you one time. Namiri wrinkled her nose. You think bringing me black coffee from the machine in here counts as being nice? I could have brought you nothing. Shota huffed as he sipped his own coffee. I think I'd prefer that. Now I have to get up. You could always not. Adding things to coffee is irrational and does nothing to help the coffee do its job. Namiri was already dumping cream into her cup. It makes it bearable. Some of us like to have some flavor in our lives. It can't just always be bitter coffee and lychee jelly packs. They're peach, actually. Namiri raised an eyebrow at him. Then why did you have lychee last week? Shota looked away while Hitoshi had to do the grocery shopping because I had a case to wrap up. The store was out of peach flavored, and he didn't know where else to find them, so he got lychee. Namiri chuckled, and like a good father, you thanked him and sucked it up even if you didn't like it. Shota shrugged and sipped his coffee. The two fell into a comfortable silence that lasted several minutes as they simply sat and drank their drinks. Eventually, Shota spoke up. How's it going with Midoriya? He's starting to go to school again, right? Namiri nodded. Yeah. Spit it out, Namiri. You have something to ask. It's just. Namiri sighed and twirled a few strands of her hair around her finger. Does Shinso have nightmares? Shota glared at his empty coffee cup. Yeah, it makes his insomnia worse. Some nights I think he sleeps less than I do. How bad is it for Midoriya? Namiri shook her head, nothing bad. But sometimes I can hear him talking in his sleep when I pass his room. He sounds so scared, and I'm just waiting sometimes for him to wake up in a panic, but it hasn't happened. I want to ask, but you feel like you aren't close enough to ask about that and get an honest answer from him, Shota stated bluntly, making Namiri slouch in her seat more. The Erasure hero sighed as he got up. Give it time. You care about him. He'll pick up on that and open up to you. Don't be afraid to open up to him either. Trust goes both ways. Namiri smiled a bit as Shota headed for the door. Wow, you've got this parenting thing down pretty well. Shota scoffed and said before leaving, it's just the logical way to do things. Chapter 6. Hanging Out. Chapter Text. 13 had been teaching at UA for several years and figured they knew their coworkers pretty well. At least they thought they did until Namiri actually adopted a kid. That had surprised them. What didn't surprise them was how much time Namiri spent in the teacher's lounge trying to figure out how to raise the kid. The R-rated hero was currently laid out on the couch looking at her phone, probably looking at an article related to raising a child. 13 didn't like taking their helmet off. The more they did it, the more people would recognize them outside of hero work, but they didn't mind the idea of Namiri seeing their face, and if all the staring that happened when they took their helmet off was anything to go by, 13 was pretty sure Namiri didn't mind getting to see their face either. So, how's it going now that you're a mom? Namiri yelped as her phone slipped and landed on her face. 13 was fairly confident that the red was a combo of the phone smack and a blush. Namiri sat up and huffed. I don't know. It's going okay, I think. 13 put their helmet on the table and sat across from Namiri in an armchair. Is everything okay? Namiri scratched her cheek. I got home past midnight last night. I was surprised to find dinner waiting, but before I could eat, I heard Midoriya was up. I guess he had a nightmare or something. I could hear him crying and trying to hold himself together. I wasn't sure what to do. 13 smiled. It must have hurt to just stand there and listen. Namiri nodded. It hurt, but I don't know. Panicked, I guess. It's kind of stupid to think I can comfort civilians all day, but I freeze up when the kid I'm supposed to raise needs help. Sounds like you're scared of messing up. I see it a lot during rescue training and new heroes who do rescues. You freeze up because you're scared that if you step in, you'll make it worse. 13 said as they gave their best reassuring smile. Remember your training for crisis management and just apply it to the next time, but try to make it more personal. Namuri sighed dramatically. You're too good at this. 13 laughed. I would hope so. Rescue ops are my specialty. Namuri smiled and said with a dramatic flourish, well, thank you for saving me, hero. However, can I repay you? Would you mind getting tea with me this weekend then, as payment for my helping you? The question caught Namuri off guard, and she blinked. Huh. 13 cleared their throat, looking a little flushed. I said you can repay me by getting tea with me this weekend. Namuri's mind went from being frozen to screaming as it clicked. 13 just asked her on a date? Is it a date? They didn't say date, but it's our day off and they want to have tea. Should I ask? No, they said it's paying them back. Come on, Namuri, you aren't a schoolgirl, stop reading so much into it. Should I take your silence as a no, or? Namuri waved her hands. No. I'll do it. I'd like to have tea with you. 13 giggled, and Namuri felt her heart flutter. I'll text you the details later. Namuri nodded slowly as 13 put their helmet back on and headed out. Namuri waited a few beats before squealing loudly and pumping her fist. She jumped up and felt like she was overcharged with energy as she did a little dance in place until the door suddenly slid open as Shota and Sekijiro walked in. Both men looked at her questioningly as Namuri slowly straightened out her posture and cleared her throat before quickly walking past them without a word. Hey Midoriya, you want to hang out tomorrow? Izuku choked on his lunch and chugged some water as he tried to process what was asked. Huh? What? Toru poked at her own lunch. I don't have anything to do, and you're kind of the only person who talks to me in school, so I figured we can hang out outside of school. Izuku swallowed. Yeah, I don't have anything to do tomorrow, so yes, sure. He couldn't see her smile, but her body language perked up, so Izuku was fairly certain she was happy about the decision. When was the last time I hung out with someone my age? Oh, I'll need your number so I can text you when and where to meet up. Toru giggled, seeing Izuku's face do an imitation of the tomatoes in his lunch. As he shakily pulled his phone out, he's so nervous. Is it just 'cause of how he was treated in Aldera? Or is it 'cause I'm a girl? Maybe both, actually. He looks like the type of guy to be shy around girls. Toru snatched up the phone and quickly put her info in and got his, I'll text you later today. Izuku nodded robotically as he took his phone back and started eating slowly. Toru swayed side to side. It had been a few days since Izuku started school here, and he hadn't stopped hanging out with her. Her bullies were a bit hesitant to mess with her while he was around. Despite his meek appearance, his initial statement on his first day seemed to keep them at bay, but sadly she couldn't hang around him all the time. It was during those times the tormentors stepped in and reminded her how they felt about her. It hurts being told you're a thief and a liar almost every day. That just made it that much better every day Yusuke hung around her, though she felt the looming dread that one day he would distance himself from her. She hoped hanging out outside of school will help reinforce their friendship so he wouldn't drift before the year was over. She could worry about summer break when it came around. Izuku sighed internally as they ate in silence. He was worried that Toru would avoid him after finding out about his quirk, but she hadn't. No one else had approached him since his first day either. He found some comfort and a lot of concern in that. Toru had proved over the past couple of days to be an interesting and kind person. He got along well with her, and even when she teased him about starting or poked fun at him, it didn't hurt like in Aldera. He hated how others avoided her because of a few lies. If they gave her a chance, they'd see what a good friend she is. As the bell rang to end lunch, Toru walked alongside Izuku back to class with a pep in her step, and Izuku stood a bit straighter as they both thought about getting to spend time with an actual friend. Izuku yawned as he came home. I'm home. Silence greeted him as he took his shoes off and dropped his pack in his room before heading back to the kitchen. As he did, his phone buzzed with a message, and he saw Toru had put her last name in as well as a string of seemingly random emojis as her contact name. Izuku sighed and was glad that it was fairly normal. In the short time he had known Toru, the word energetic came to mind. Despite what she had gone through, she was still in high spirits as far as he could tell. Izuku unlocked his phone and checked the message. Hagakure, hey Midoriya, hope I put the numbers in right. Izuku gulped as he realized this was the first time he had texted a kid his age. Her being a girl made him more nervous. He hated that. After taking a deep breath and shoving his thoughts away, he responded. Midoriya, yes, you did. Hagakure, oh yay. Alright, you remember the convenience store? The best one around. Midoriya, yes, I remember. Hagakure, good. Meet me there at 10. Izuku sent his confirmation and continued to text as he grabbed a snack. Gradually, as they talked about nothing in particular, he relaxed. He noticed a lot more time passed than he thought as Namuri came home. I'm home. Welcome home, Izuku said as he shot off a text. Namuri smiled, talking with Izuki? Izuku blushed, no. He regretted his stutter and his face's betrayal as Namuri got that smug look in her eye that meant she would tease him. Oh, could it be that Hagakure girl you've mentioned? Finally, got her number. Huh? I expected it to take longer. Color me impressed. Izuku's face flushed harder. What? No. It's just she wanted to hang out tomorrow dash. Namuri grinned, and Izuku cursed internally. Wow. Looks like both of us are going to be busy tomorrow. Izuku blinked. Huh. I'm heading out to have tea with a friend from work tomorrow. I promise not to embarrass you if I run into you. Izuku straight up said. I'll try to do the same. Namuri chuckled, glad to hear it. Can you get started on dinner? I've got to rest a bit before patrols tonight. Izuku nodded as he got up. Sure thing. Izuku was nervous, and he could tell she was as well. Why are you nervous? Namuri smoothed out her shirt. I don't want to mess this up. It's just tea, but it's a start. Why are you nervous? You know, other than normal teenage boy nerves. Izuku blushed. This is the first time since I was 4 that I'm going to hang out with a friend. And they're a girl, Namuri whispered, making Izuku swat her away. Not helping. I don't want to mess up and lose the first friend I've made since, well, everything. Namuri smiled sadly and patted his head. You won't mess up. And even if you do, friends forgive each other. Hagakure sounds like a good kid, so I'm sure you'll be fine. Just be yourself and have fun today. All right, kid. Izuku smiled. Thanks, Kayama. Sometimes I forget you can give good advice. She pulled him into a headlock and ruffled his hair aggressively. Who taught you to be sassy? Izuku laughed. Yasuda did direct your complaints to her. Namuri huffed as she let him go. I will when we go back to see her. She smiled as he adjusted his hair. Not that it mattered since the mass of fluffy hair seemed untamable. Have a good day, kid. I'll see you around for dinner. All right? Izuku nodded. Why yeah, you too. The two headed out and went their separate ways. Toru was excited for today. Izuku didn't seem like he did much outside the house, so she'd have to make sure to show him all the cool stuff out there. She checked her phone and saw it was 10 now. She may have shown up a little too early and had been standing outside the store for 15 minutes. Oh, Hagakure, you're already here. I'm not late, right? Toru turned to see Izuku. He was wearing those red shoes he always has on, a pair of jeans and a green hoodie. Toru was dressed similarly in a pair of black and pink sneakers, skinny jeans, and a rose-colored jacket over a black t-shirt. Nope. Also, your hoodie says family found. What's that about? Izuku blushed and scratched his head. Ah, it was a gift. I was an orphan and got adopted recently. This was a gift from the young K-kids. Toru grinned. I like it. It suits you. Izuku's face reddened more. Thanks, why your outfit looks good as well. Toru giggled. That's good. But do you think this shade of pink matches my eyes? 'Cause I'm not sure. She nearly doubled over in laughter at Izuku's hesitant face. Eventually, Izuku chuckled and started laughing as well. She waved him along with her silver bracelets shining. Come on. I'll show you the best place to kill a few hours. Izuku nodded and followed her as they walked down the street. He felt a little bad about not helping plan today, but he still didn't know a lot about the area yet, so he could do nothing but hope Toru knew what she was doing. It only took a few minutes before Toru stopped and spun around, gesturing grandly to the building behind her. First up today is the best arcade around. They got the best pieces, games, and prizes. I hope you're ready for me to kick your butt at everything here. Izuku chuckled, you're pretty confident. I guess you see come here a lot. Toru gave a full-body nod, yep. My older brother showed me this place and beat me thoroughly. So I keep coming here so I can beat him one day. I hope I'll be a good enough training partner. As they entered, Toru asked, have you never gone to an arcade? Izuku was assaulted by lights and sound as he tried to form a response. Dozens upon dozens of arcade games were strewn about, blaring noise and flashing colors to draw people in. Izuku's brain skipped a beat. And no, I haven't. I usually avoid these places. Toru slumped a bit before bouncing back to her usual energy. Well then, I hope today helps you realize what you've been missing. This is gonna be so much fun. Izuku gave his best smile and followed her deeper in. There was a bit of a learning curve with each game they played, but Izuku was a smart kid and a quick learner. Toru was also surprisingly good at explaining things despite how her personality would usually say otherwise. Izuku admitted Toru was better than him, but he managed to secure a few victories as they moved from game to game, and before they knew it, a couple hours had gone by. Izuku had lost track of Toru for a second and looked around as the bubbling start of panic surfaced in his stomach, but it quickly vanished as he saw the floating clothes by a crane machine. What are you looking at? Toru poked the glass. That green rabbit looks so cute. It would look great in my room. Are you gonna try to get it? He asked as her shoulders slumped. I want to, but I'm kinda really bad at these. Izuku smiled a bit. I can try. I've never done this, though. Toru bounced up as her energy came back, and she quickly explained how it worked. Izuku paid, and Toru saw his face shift to a more serious and less timid look as he concentrated. She shivered a bit, feeling like it would be intimidating to have him actually direct that look at a person. Then she giggled internally, seeing how serious his face got because of a stuffed animal. It took a couple tries to get a feel for it, but by the third attempt, the rabbit was freed from their glass prison and swept up in Toru's arms. The invisible girl clutched her rabbit as they left. You should have gotten one for yourself. Izuku waved his hand. No, I've never been big on stuffed animals. I am also pretty used to my room being kinda empty. Toru's shoulders slumped. That sounds like a boring room. What do you do to distract yourself if there's nothing in your room? Do homework. Toru groaned at that one. Look at my phone. Or organize my notebooks. So schoolwork or playing on your phone? That's all you got going on in your room? Toru asked as she took the lead to who knows where. Izuku blushed. The notebooks aren't for school. Toru cocked her head to the side. Not that it would convey her confusion any better than if she didn't. What are they for then? I write down stuff about heroes. When I see a hero in action live or see it on the news, I write down the stuff about their quirks and how they handle situations. I theorize about the use of their quirks and possible improvements and stuff, to then study it and see what I can learn from them. Toru was quiet, and Izuku feared the worst. People had called his notebooks creepy and then called him a stalker or a villain. He was starting to worry that Toru would do the same, but the girl spoke before his fear could choke him. That sounds super useful. You gotta show me sometime. I wanna see it, alright? Izuku blushed and nodded. I'll bring my most recent one to school. Toru pumped her fist. Can't wait. Oh hey, since you're such a big hero nerd, do you know any heroes with a quirk like mine? I've looked before, but I'm pretty sure they'd all be underground. Izuku nodded. I have heard of a couple, but they're from different countries. I don't really remember their names. It was quite a while ago when I heard about them. Toru bounced a bit as she walked. That just means I'll be leading the way for people like me. I'll show them that I can be a hero even with a quirk as simple as mine. Simple quirks are really good, and not to say there are quirks that aren't good. They're all good in my book. I just mean once you get a handle on a simple quirk, you can actually get really creative with how you take advantage of its strengths and weaknesses. Toru nodded. You're really smart when it comes to quirks and stuff, aren't you? Izuku rubbed the back of his head as he blushed. I don't know, I guess. Why Yasuda got me into analyzing quirks and heroes when I was young. Yasuda? Who's that? Oh, Yasuda Azuki. She works at the orphanage I grew up in. She was like a big sister to me, and she's a huge hero nerd. Toru giggled before suddenly gasping, making Izuku jump. Oh, do you want to get some bubble tea? This place has some good choices. Izuku nodded and followed her into the shop. It was a small and homey place with a few plush booths and small tables. It was quiet, with only a few customers sitting and enjoying their drinks. The two ordered and paid separately and sat to wait for their drinks as they did. Toru asked, "So what's your guardian like?" Izuku thought for a moment and decided it was probably best not to blurt out that his guardian was a hero while in public. "She's really kind and protective of me. She also teases me a lot and questions my fashion sense." Toru titled her head. "It doesn't seem bad to me." Izuku chuckled. "You just haven't seen most of my shirts. They all say something strange." "Really? Let me guess, you have a shirt that says shirt on it or something?" Toru stared at Izuku as he blushed and scratched his cheek before laughing. "Wait, really?" Izuku nodded. "It's my favorite shirt." "Are you wearing it now under your hoodie?" Izuku shook his head. "No." He lifted his hoodie to reveal a black shirt with bold white letters that said, "Hot Soup." "I'm wearing one of my soup shirts." "One of?" The other one says cold soup," Izuku mumbled, causing the invisible girl to laugh again. Once Toru had gotten herself under control, she asked, "So what's your guardian's name? Oh, and what does she do for a job?" Namuri Kayama, and she's an art history professor at a university," Izuku stammered out as Toru hummed. "Art history?" she said, and Izuku could imagine she was probably scrunching her nose up at the idea. Despite her very playful personality, she is very serious about art history and its importance in the world. I questioned her on it at one point and ended up sitting through an hour-long lecture about it. She said it would have been longer, but she didn't have her laptop or a projector to show the various PowerPoints she had made. Izuku sighed as Toru dissolved into giggles again. Izuku cleared his throat after a moment and hesitated before asking, What about why your family?" Toru grinned. "Well, it's me, my mom, dad, and an older brother. My mom is a lawyer and dad works computers and stuff. My older brother is in his last year of high school, so he'll be heading off to college or something, I guess." Their orders came up before Izuku could work up the courage to ask follow-up questions, and they left the establishment. Toru was drinking something that smelled like the embodiment of the word fruity and chewed on the jellies she got instead of the typical tapioca. Izuku sipped his rose milk tea, and the two walked in relative silence that was broken usually by Toru pointing at shops and commenting on them. "Oh, there's a nice park around here. I figured a quiet guy like yourself would enjoy that kind of thing." Izuku blushed but nodded. "Why yeah, that sounds dash." "Izuku?" A voice from behind caught his attention, and he stopped. Panic briefly filled his chest as he saw a head of ash-blonde hair, but it subsided quickly, and a nostalgic sort of feeling replaced it. "Aunt Mitsuki?" The older woman smiled as she approached. "It is you. Come here." Toru took his drink as he got swept up in a hug that crushed him. After a moment, the matriarch of the Bakugo family pulled back before anything else. "I wanted to apologize for everything." Her eyes flicked to Toru. "You didn't have to be as forgiving as you were, but I'm thankful, and so is Masaru." Izuku nodded. "Why, it's okay, Auntie." Mitsuki smiled as she stepped back. "You're looking better as well. That's good." Izuku gulped as she got a grin he usually saw on Namuri or Yasuda before they teased him. "Now, are you going to introduce your favorite aunt to your friend, or not?" Izuku blushed as he took his drink back. Hagakure, this is Mitsuki Bakugo. She's basically like an aunt to me. My mom was good friends with her before she passed. Auntie, this is Toru Hagakure, a friend of mine." Mitsuki's smile faded a bit as she remembered her best friend. "It's nice to meet you, Hagakure. I hope Izuku's behaving himself." Toru giggled. "Oh yeah, he's a great friend. A bit quiet, but I can more than make up for the difference." Mitsuki laughed. "Good. He's always been a shy boy. Now I better get going. I don't want to be late." She paused before stepping away. "Also, I heard about your adoption, Izuku. I'm really happy for you." Izuku smiled. "Thanks, Auntie. Have a good day." With that, Mitsuki took her leave, and the two teens started for the park again. By the time they got there, Hagakure had finished her drink and disposed of the cup. As they walked, she played with the green stuffed rabbit's ears. So that was your mom's best friend? Yeah. She's a nice lady if a bit intense at times, and crude with her language. So, this may be rude to ask, but why didn't she adopt you? Izuku smiled sadly. I would have liked that back then, but to put it simply, they couldn't afford to. The Bakugo house is Auntie, her husband, and their son. All three of them have quirks that let them secret somewhat volatile chemicals, so they spend a lot on special clothing, furniture, and neutralizing agents to keep their house from going up in a fireball. They're not in danger of losing everything, but they also don't make enough to add one more growing boy to the mix. Toru nodded. Quirks can make things expensive sometimes. It sucks you couldn't live with them. Izuku shrugged and fought against the knot in his throat. It's for the best. Their son and I don't get along. Toru nodded. That would complicate things. Though having an adoptive mom that hot might make up for it. The sound of a hand slapping a mouth echoed as Izuku stared, shocked at the floating clothes. Toru slowly lowered her hand. I wasn't supposed to say that out loud. Izuku couldn't help but chuckle a bit, even as Toru punched his arm and told him to shut up. The two continued their walk through the park, with Toru groaning about developing her brother's bad habit of blurting things out. It's okay, Hagakure. I have a habit of mumbling what I'm thinking. It's pretty embarrassing sometimes. Toru perked up a bit. Well, I can't wait to see that happen. Izuku blushed and groaned as his friend laughed. They spent some time in the park simply walking around and talking aimlessly about whatever crossed their minds. Topics like heroes, funny videos, or memes they'd seen, stuff on the news, and random memories that came back to them. Izuku smiled inwardly as he thought of how relaxed he was. He didn't usually feel this relaxed except around Yasuda and to some extent Kayama though. He had to admit he was still fretting about the possibility that she would somehow change her mind about him, and he'd be back with Yasuda in the orphanage or worse because of where he was now they'd put him in a different one. One that could be worse than what he was lucky enough to grow up in. Midoriya. Hey Midoriya. Izuku flinched and looked at Toru. Huh? What happened? Toru tilted her head. You were mumbling. Which while cute was concerning because it didn't sound like anything pleasant. Izuku couldn't even be bothered to worry about his blushing face as the dread set in that he mumbled about his insecurities while his friend was nearby. It's nothing. I'm still adjusting. I had pretty much given up on ever getting adopted, so I'm still a little shocked it happened. I think I get what you mean. It must have been pretty surprising that this Kayama lady decided to take you in. Izuku nodded. Yeah, I knew she cared about me, but well, there's caring about someone, then there's taking the time and effort to find a new place so you can take care of them kind of caring. She's a wonderful person, but I hope it's just that she's nervous too. I don't think either of us really thought this would happen to us. Toru giggled. I think as long as you're honest with someone, it'll work out. Izuku nodded and watched as Toru pulled her phone out and groaned. My mom wants me to pick some stuff up before she gets home. I gotta go so I can make sure to get back before her. You gonna be able to get home? Izuku nodded. Yeah. I'm gonna stay here a bit longer, though. Aya had fun today. Toru bounced in place. Yeah, this was great. We gotta make sure to do it again or something different. I'll see you at school, Midoriya. Why yeah. I'll see you at school, Hagakure. Later that night, Namuri sighed as she came home. Her totally not a date with 13 had gone almost perfectly right up until a villain attack happened, and she had to help, which led to her spending the rest of the day talking to the media and civilians, then having to go do paperwork at the police station. She was glad that 13 had texted her later, saying they had fun and should do it again without the villain attack. Namuri found it hard to not grin the whole way home. Now she just needed to make sure Izuku's day went well, and it would all be good. She entered the apartment and smelled dinner cooking. Namuri frowned a bit, realizing she hadn't been the one to cook in a few days. I'm home. Welcome back. Dinner's almost ready. Izuku called back as she entered the kitchen/living room area. How was your day, Midoriya? Namuri asked as she placed her bag on the dining table. Izuku smiled, and Namuri's heart clenched at how genuine it was. I had a great day. Namuri smiled and sat at the table, Well then, tell me about it, and I'll tell you about the villain I fought today. She watched his eyes light up before he dove into his story. Namuri smiled and teased him at points, making the boy blush. When Mitsuki was mentioned, Namuri huffed, but seeing that Izuku still thought fondly of his pseudo-aunt, she didn't voice her opinion on the Bakugo family. Once he was done, he practically vibrated with excitement as Namuri started talking about her day. Meanwhile, in a room full of various shades of pink and complementing colors, a single green rabbit stuck out like a sore thumb at the head of the bed as an invisible girl talked to her brother about how much fun she had with her friend. Chapter 7: Study Sessions. Final exams were 2 weeks away, and Toru was freaking out. Her grades weren't the worst, but they weren't the best either. These were also the last tests of junior high. She would need good grades to make sure she got into a good enough high school to boost her chances of getting into UA. Naturally, this meant she was panicking, but there was a ray of hope in her best friend, Izuku Midoriya. He had quickly proven to be what she called a smart cookie. So on their walk home, Toru groaned loudly. "Midoriya, I need your help." Izuku smiled. "Finals?" Toru nodded. "Yep. I need a study buddy, and you're a smart cookie and my only friend. So teach me to be smart like you." Izuku blushed and scratched his cheek. "I wouldn't say I'm that smart, Dash. You'd be top of the class if you hadn't transferred over so late in the year. Now come on. Let's study before I lose motivation." Toru pumped a fist, desperately trying to keep her spirits up so she wouldn't bail and slack off like she usually did when it came to studying. Izuku pulled his phone out and tapped a few times before frowning. "I was going to suggest the library, but there's a villain attack nearby, so no way we'll be able to go there." A brilliant and slightly nerve-wracking idea struck Toru, and her fat mouth blurted it out before her brain could dismiss it. "Why don't we study at your place?" She bit her tongue and cursed internally. "Why would I say that? I mean, I want to hang out with him and all, but come on, we haven't been friends that long. I can't just ask to come over, right?" Izuku blushed a bit. "Oh well, yeah, I don't think Kayama W would mind." Toru nodded and pulled her phone out as they walked. "I'll text my mom and let her know." Toru's mom was fine with it, and the two headed towards Izuku's place. Internally, Izuku panicked about the state of the apartment. Namuri wasn't a messy person, at least not outside of her own room, but sometimes after a particularly long night on patrol, he would wake up the next morning and find her hero costume and other bits on the couch or kitchen table, which would raise several questions and be incredibly embarrassing. Izuku sighed a bit louder than he meant to as they approached his apartment complex, and Toru turned her attention to him. "You good?" "Ah, haha." Izuku laughed nervously. "Why yeah. Just hoping Kayama didn't leave anything embarrassing out. Sometimes, she gets home late and leaves a bit of a mess. I don't remember if I saw anything this morning, so I'm hoping it's clean." Toru giggled. "I understand. I promise I won't judge you like some old lady if your place isn't spotless." Izuku chuckled as they started up the stairs. "Thanks." He took a deep breath and unlocked the door before stepping inside, quickly followed by Toru, who muttered, "Pardon for the intrusion." They took their shoes off and made their way into the living room, and Izuku sighed, seeing it was clean. Make yourself at home. Why, you want some tea?" "Sounds good, Midoriya," Toru said as she made her way to the couch, and Izuku went to get the tea started. Toru sat down and started pulling some of her school work out when she noticed a notebook on the table already. She pulled it over to see what was written on the top: hero analysis for the future number 15, by Izuku Midoriya. Toru squinted as she inspected the notebook without opening it. It was obviously used, and this was number 15. The one he had shown her was 14. Maybe this one isn't finished, so he didn't bring it? Or there's someone in here he didn't want me to see. She grinned before quickly checking to see Izuku still in the kitchen. She could take a quick peek. It's not like he ever said she couldn't look at the other notebooks he wrote. Toru quickly flipped it open, seeing some notes on new heroes in the area that she had heard Izuku talking about before. She was surprised and a little disappointed that MT Lady didn't have any comments about her looks or costume other than a note about how cool the advancements in clothing were. She had hoped there'd be something to tease him with, and she got her wish as she flipped past another hero and landed on a page dedicated to her and her quirk. Toru totally didn't blush reading the praise Izuku had written when it came to her various skills aside from her quirk. He praised her stealth and physical skills while also theorizing about her quirk and possible ways it worked and things she could do depending on how it made her invisible and the level of control she could have. She stopped reading and looked at the drawing on the side depicting the clothes she had worn the first time they hung out outside of school. Unlike the other entries, she noticed hers wasn't a bust shot. It was a full-body shot, but there were clear eraser marks around where the head would be. I wonder how he drew my face. Oh no! She looked over to see Izuku's blushing face as he brought in 2 cups of tea. I left that out, didn't I? Toru grinned. Yeah, you did. I gotta say I'm impressed with all the stuff you thought of when it came to my quirk. And you're a really good artist, you know that, right? Toru was satisfied as Izuku's face did an impression of a tomato while setting the tea on the table. Kayama and Yasuda both said the same thing. I just draw what I see. I mean, yeah, it's gotten better, but I wouldn't consider it that great. Well, I think it's great, Toru said as she took her cup of tea. I mean, I wouldn't dash. Izuku flinched as an invisible hand flicked his cheek. Take the compliment, Midoriya. Izuku nodded meekly. All right. Thanks. Good, now on to math where I am. Completely lost, Toru said, deflating on the spot. Izuku chuckled a bit and got started by going over the little bit she did know before helping her understand what she didn't know. Namuri sighed and stretched as she walked up the stairs to her apartment. It had been a long day at UA. The support course and hero course had joined up to test out some inventions which had gone horribly. She got caught staring at 13 while they were walking by as Namuri was supervising some outdoor training. And then to top it off, someone finished off the ice cream she kept in the teacher's lounge. Namuri clenched her fist. She knew it was Hizashi. She would just need to get proof so she could out him as the food thief he is. As she entered, Namuri started to say she was home till she saw the extra pair of shoes and heard someone in the living room. Ugh, no, that's a stupid word, and it shouldn't count. Izuku chuckled. The game recognized it, so you have to deal with it. The voice huffed. Well, English is a stupid language and Scrabble sucks. Namuri slipped her shoes off and crept up the hallway. Izuku was in the living room with what sounded like a girl. If she could get a picture and send it to Yasuda. Midoriya? Why is the hero Midnight creeping in your apartment? Namuri enjoyed the panicked look on Izuku's face as his head whipped around to look at her. Namuri leaned on the wall, trying to act like she hadn't just been caught sneaking up on them. Midoriya, I didn't know you'd be having a friend over. Izuku stuttered and rubbed his neck. I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you, Kayama. Toru choked. Wait. Kayama? She's Kayama? Your guardian. Izuku nodded, and Namuri laughed. Yes. I'm Namuri Kayama, also known as Midnight. I guess Midoriya didn't say I was a hero. Toru shook her head. No, he said you were a professor of art history. Namuri tapped her chin. You know that's not a lie. I do teach that at UA. This is so weird. Oh, sorry. I'm Toru Hagakure, a friend of Midoriya's. Oh, you're Hagakure. Midoriya has mentioned you a bit. It's nice to meet you. Namuri studied her appearance as best she could. She really is totally invisible. That's so cool. Likewise, ma'am, Toru said, giving a small bow. Namuri smiled and was about to head to her room to change when she stopped. Oh, Midoriya. Nizu is having us change up the final exam for the 4th years, so I won't be able to go with you this weekend. Say hello to Izuki for me. Izuku smiled, but Namuri saw the bit of disappointment in it, and it clawed at her chest. All right, I'll tell her, but just know she'll be super annoying about you not coming. So be ready for that. Namuri laughed as she went to her room. I'll be prepared, I promise. Once Namuri was gone, Toru punched Izuku's arm, making the boy nearly fall off the couch. Oh, ow, what was that for? You didn't tell me Kayama was Midnight, Toru whispered loudly. Izuku rubbed his arm. Well, we never hang out somewhere private, and I didn't want someone overhearing. We got lucky, and the media hasn't realized I live with her. They just know she moved for some reason. I guess that makes sense. Still, it's pretty cool. But, Izuku looked at her curiously. What? Toru bit her lip. She calls you Midoriya. Yeah, I call her by her last name too. Toru waved her hands. I just mean, well, I guess I didn't expect you to be so formal. I mean, you two are family now, right? Sorry if that's rude. Izuku rubbed his arm. We are. I guess I'm still nervous about all this. It feels too good to be true, you know? Toru patted his arm and watched his phone slowly start to slide away. Hagakure, why are you stealing my phone? The phone shot up as she jumped from her seat. This game is terrible and full of lies. I won't let it hurt my friend. I'm deleting this evil from your phone. Izuku sighed and rubbed his eyes as a chuckle escaped him. You said you wanted English studying to be more fun. Toru tapped away before tossing the phone to him. Satisfied. That was before I remembered English is stupid. Namuri chuckled as she came back in. I agree, but it's important to know. Now Hagakure, would you like to stay for dinner? Toru grabbed her phone. I'd like to, but I gotta ask my folks first. Of course, I'll get started on it. You two can relax or keep studying, Namuri said before making her way to the kitchen. Toru reported her parents were okay with her staying for dinner, and the two teenagers decided to take a break from studying and just talked like they usually did when they left school. Namuri smiled and managed to stealthily steal a couple pics of them when neither was paying attention. She quickly shot off a text to Yasuda before getting back to cooking. Once dinner was ready, the three sat down, and Namuri listened to them talk and threw in the occasional comment, usually to Izuku's embarrassment. She enjoyed Toru's energy and her attitude. Namuri encouraged her to be a hero and gave her a few tips on things to look into when Toru admitted she didn't know what she would do about a hero costume. Eventually, it was time for Toru to go, and Izuku walked her to the gate. When he came back in, Namuri smiled. I like her. She's even nicer than you said she was. She's a good friend for you. Izuku smiled. Why yeah, she is. I am surprised you aren't teasing me about this more. Namuri smiled and held her phone up, showing the photos she sent to Yasuda. I'm leaving that up to Yasuda. You should invite Hagakure to go with you, by the way. Azuki wants to meet her. Izuku blushed and groaned. All right, I'll ask her tomorrow at school. Namuri nodded. Good. Now I'm gonna get some rest. I'll have to head in early tomorrow. Due to years as a pro, Namuri was a light sleeper, so the sudden noise in her apartment woke her up immediately, but she was slow to move. On instinct, she subtly made sure her room was empty before sitting up as her mind cleared more. The noise happened again, and she realized it was coming from Izuku's room. Panic gripped her as she flew out of bed and down the hall to Izuku's room, her quirk stirring to life as the haze lifted off her exposed arms. She heard him scream as she opened the door in time to see Izuku wake up with panic in his eyes. Namuri ran over to him and knelt after seeing no one was in the room with him. Midoriya. He didn't respond. Instead, his eyes flicked around as he tried to make himself smaller. Namuri bit her lip and thought about what 13 had said before she whispered, Izuku, calm down. It's okay. It was a nightmare. There's nothing to be afraid of. I'm here, and you're safe now. Izuku stopped shaking, and his eyes slowly focused as he looked at her in the dim light. Keikayama? Namuri smiled and slowly reached out and ran her fingers through his hair. Yeah, I'm here. It's okay now. You don't need to worry. Tears welled up in his eyes, and Izuku shuddered as a sob racked his body. Namuri sat on the bed and continued to gently pet Izuku's head as he ran through his emotions. Slowly, like he was scared she would stop him, he grabbed the edge of her shirt. Namuri sat in silence and let him calm down at his own pace. Once his tears had dried, and the last few shuddering breaths had been taken, she spoke. Do you want to talk about it? The silence was tense as she waited for him to answer. She desperately wanted him to, but she knew she couldn't push it if he said no. Izuku took a deep breath before saying, I haven't dreamt about it in so long. I almost hoped I had forgotten. She watched him take several deep breaths before continuing. I told you how my parents died when I was 6. I never told you I was there. When it happened. Namuri's breath stopped before she gently pulled Izuku into a hug and rubbed small circles on his back as fresh tears spilled out. I had run a bit ahead. I was so excited cause a hero was nearby and when I turned, I saw the villain see coming. Namuri shushed him gently as he sobbed, and her free hand started running through his hair again. She wasn't even sure what to say now, so she let him cry and hoped her quiet comfort was what he needed until she could find the right words. Izuku's tears dried, and Namuri patted his back gently but tensed as he asked, I am not gonna lose my family again, alright? Namuri's eyes went wide as she realized he was afraid she would abandon him. It wasn't uncommon for kids to get sent back if the foster parents decided they couldn't handle an older kid. No, of course not. I'm your family now, and I'm not letting you go ever. Okay? I'm never giving you up. You're Izuku Kayama Midoriya now and forever. Unless you change it to Hagakure. Which I would understand. She does seem to have you figured out fairly well for how long you two have known each other. She could practically feel his blush as she kept talking. I can only imagine what it'll be like when she ropes you into confessing dash. Gah! Izuku pulled back, his face bright red. It's not like that. We're just friends. Namuri chuckled and wiped away some tears from his cheek. I know, but I gotta tease you, remember? It's my job now. Izuku pouted. You teased me before you adopted me. Namuri found his pout adorable and pinched his cheek, making him squirm. That's 'cause I like you. I tease the people I care about. Izuku rubbed his eyes as he chuckled before falling silent. Namuri looked at him as he spoke quietly. Why you called me Izuku, when you started calming me down. Namuri's cheek flushed a bit. I'm sorry, Dash. No, it's fine. I don't know. Maybe I was worried you didn't want to be informal. I thought if neither of us relaxed, then it would hurt less. If you gave me up. I don't know if I'm making sense. Izuku was pulled into another hug, which he returned as Namuri said, I'm sorry. I was unsure of how to talk with you. I wasn't sure how I should speak to you now that we weren't just a teacher and student, so I stuck to formalities despite being your guardian. Foster mom, Izuku muttered. Namuri smiled. You can call me Namuri if you want. Izuku nodded against her shoulder. I'll try. She tightened her hug, which got a groan out of him before saying, I'm fine with that. Izuku held her as she tried to move. See, can you stay just a minute longer? Namuri smiled, of course. The two sat hugging for several minutes before sleep started to crawl back into Izuku's brain, and Namuri left to let him it. Toru felt almost giddy as she got to her usual meeting spot so she and Izuku could walk to school. Yesterday had been great. She had gone to a friend's house to study and had dinner with them. Toru couldn't even remember the last time she had done that, though her mother did insist that next time she bring Izuku over so her family could finally meet Toru's friend. She bounced in place a bit as she psyched herself up. Midoriya was okay with me going to his place, so he should be fine with coming to mine, right? Yeah, it'll be fine, I'm sure. Hopefully. Toru was pulled from her thoughts as the familiar green mop of hair made its way over to her. Izuku smiled, but she saw the bags under his eyes. Hey Hagakure. Toru smiled despite her quirk. Heya. You okay? Midoriya? You look like you didn't sleep well. Izuku's smile faltered as he thought of whatever it was that had kept him from sleeping before suddenly becoming brighter. Wea. I just had a rough night, but Namuri helped me out. Toru grinned at the development as they started walking. Oh, you're using her first name. I guess you two talked. Izuku nodded a bit. Why yeah. We talked a bit. It was good, and I think some of my fears have been dissuaded. Toru squealed and jumped, giving him a quick hug. Yay, I'm glad to hear it. Izuku blushed a bit before saying, since Namuri can't come, do you want to go with me to the orphanage? I know Yasuda would like to meet you, as she's pretty much my big sister. Toru felt her face heat up a bit. Why yeah. But you gotta do something for me. What? Izuku asked cautiously. My mom was bothering me when I got home last night and said since I studied and had dinner at your place, it was only right that I introduce my friend to them, so we gotta go study at my place today, Toru explained as they got to the school. Izuku's face looked like a tomato, which Toru still found endless enjoyment in. He nodded. Okay, that's fair. But why you didn't have to make it a deal? I would have been fine with it anyways. Toru shrugged. Well, I just had to make sure. You're a shy boy and a bit squirrely sometimes. I figured you might explode at the idea of going to a girl's house. She turned to see Izuku doing his best to keep a neutral face. Why would I? Why, you're a friend. And we're just studying. Toru giggled. That's the spirit now, come on. Let's hope today goes quickly. I'm already tired of being here. Izuku was nervous, not that he'd let Toru know that. The two were standing outside the Hagakure household as Toru chatted about some game her brother had started playing. As they entered, Toru announced she was home and had brought a friend. A woman a few years older than Namuri poked her head into the hallway and smiled. Her green eyes lit up, and she stepped around fully. She was wearing a sleeveless green sundress with a gray apron over it, and her brown hair pulled up into a bun. Ah, you must be Midoriya, right? Toru has said so much about you. Izuku smiled. It's nice to meet you, ma'am. Toru's mother led them inside to the living room. Would you like some tea? I'll bring some snacks as well. Toru sighed but smiled. Thanks, Mom. The two set up, and by the time they started going over the first subject, Toru's mother brought out some tea and snacks to help them along. Izuku relaxed as they studied and went over the work they covered today. Izuku saw Toru tense as a door closed in the house, and she grumbled, "Oh great, he's coming out." Izuku quirked an eyebrow before hearing Toru's mom chuckled, "Well, looking who decided to leave his room. What do you need, more water or a snack? You know dinner will be soon." Izuku looked over as an older boy in gym shorts and a black shirt walked in. He rubbed his hand through his short pink hair. It was a soft color that reminded him of coral that he saw in a documentary. The older boy's eyes were the same color, and they locked onto him as he said in a tired voice, "I was getting water." Izuku felt a chill go down his spine as the boy grinned. "But it seems my baby sister brought a friend over, and a boy no less. When did she go and grow up?" Toru groaned, and her head thumped against the table. "Don't you dare start, Achi. I will sell all your collectibles." Achi laughed as he walked towards the kitchen. "But it's my brotherly duty. I need to embarrass you and scare him." Toru huffed but smiled as she heard her mom chided Achi for teasing them while they're trying to study. "Sorry about Achi." Izuku smiled. It's fine. That reminds me you should be ready when we visit the orphanage. I know Yasuda is going to tease me while I'm there, and she might drag you into it too." Toru laughed. "Don't worry. I can tease you even without someone pushing me to." Izuku covered his face as he groaned. "I know, and that worries me." Toru chuckled as she nudged him as they got back to studying. Eventually, Toru's father came home, and Izuku noticed his hair was the same as Achi's but with a few graying streaks. He introduced himself and was a pleasant man who managed to ruffle his daughter's hair without even looking at her. Izuku stayed and ate dinner with the Hagakure family before saying his goodbyes and heading home. All in all, it was a perfectly ordinary visit that left him feeling relieved. He had been so nervous about going to a friend's house and messing something up, but he didn't. Izuku's mood dipped as he saw reporters outside his apartment building. The vultures descended on him as he approached the gate, keeping them out. "Boy, do you know that the hero Midnight has moved into this building recently? Is there anything you can tell us?" Izuku raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I could tell you a whole lot." "Who? Look, I just want to go home and sleep. I've had a long day. Excuse me." Izuku slipped in as they all kept asking questions and headed for the elevator, his chest pounding as his nerves caught up with him. Yet another incident of him not stuttering while saying something with way more confidence than he had any right to. Maybe having a friend like Hagakure and a foster mom like Namuri were doing more for Izuku than he thought.